Chapter 1453. Where are you and my son? Mu-Axian asked coldly. In the villa. Mu-Axian, when I bought the villa, I already thought about it. We can live together. What a load of nonsense. I, the mistress of the house, haven't moved in yet and another woman has already moved in. Ban Jianing said, at that time, I just renovated it casually. Do you have a particular style in mind? Let's renovate the villa, okay? When Mu Xiao heard that, she raised her head and looked around the living room. No, the renovations were quite good. There was no need to renovate. Mu-Axian snorted coldly. Ban Jianing, is it because this kind of renovation has left you too many beautiful memories and you don't want to remember her, so you decided to renovate it in another style so that you won't be reminded of the scenery? Ban Jianing heard that and said coldly, all right then, let's do it like this. No renovations. Mu-Axian felt that her mouth was so cheap. How do you want to renovate it? I have to observe your villa carefully, Mu-Axian mumbled. Ban Jianing curled his lips and smiled. It's not my villa, it's our villa. Do you want to start now and I'll pick you up? Pick what up? I'm starving. Can't the popcorn fill your stomach? No. Mushin suddenly roared into the phone. Ban Jianing's eardrums vibrated. He moved the phone away from his ear and frowned slightly. He looked at Mu Xiao and said silently, what a fierce woman. Hee hee. Hee hee. Mu Xiao laughed so hard that she lay on the sofa. Although it was not on speaker, the environment was quiet and Mu-Axian was loud, so Mu Xiao could hear what she said. Mu Xiao laughed so hard that she cramped up when she heard them talking in a good tone and then being fierce or cold in the next moment. Living with them in the future would definitely be exciting. Ban Jianing put the phone back to his ear and said gently, what do you want to eat? I'll take you to eat. His low and gentle voice was like a spring breeze, gently caressing Mu-Axian's heart. Mu-Axian's heart skipped a beat and she could not be fierce anymore. She was really hungry. I want to eat seafood. No problem. I want to eat seafood too. Honey, how about this? I'll send you the address of a super delicious seafood restaurant. You drive over. Mu Xiao and I will go first. When you arrive, the dishes will be served. I don't have a car. Mushin emphasized, not forgetting to add, I'm not your wife. Although she said that, when she heard Ban Jianing call her wife, her face immediately turned red. Mu Xiao came over and gave Ban Jianing a thumbs up. Daddy is awesome. Take a taxi here. After dinner, I'll take you to choose a car. Mu-Axian nodded. That's more like it. After hanging up, Ban Jianing quickly sent the address to Mushin. Before she received the address, Mushin went into her room and changed her clothes. When she came out, the address had already been sent over. She took her bag and went out. She was dressed simply and had no makeup on, but her skin was very good. Even without makeup, it was still so fair and tender. However, she had not been able to sleep well for the past few days. The pain of being heartbroken made her shed a lot of tears. There were bags under her eyes, and she looked a little haggard. She went downstairs and suddenly saw Lin Ruoruo. She was shocked. Lin Ruoruo was here. His mind was filled with all sorts of images of his love rival challenging him. Some pointed and scolded, some threw checks arrogantly, some pulled hair and fought. Mushin pursed her lips. She wondered what kind of method Lin Ruoruo would use to challenge her. Chapter 1454. Coming out of Ban Jianing's villa, Lin Ruoruo came to find Mushin. She didn't know where Mushin lived, so she got the address from Sister May. Seeing Mushin, Lin Ruoruo's eyes narrowed. She didn't think Mushin was stunning, but rather petty. But Ban Jianing liked her, and for so many years, she walked up, and Muxin walked over. Soon, they met. The two women were very close to each other, standing face to face. Muxin looked at Lin Ruoruo. Her eyes were red and swollen, and Muxin knew that she had cried. Muxin smiled and looked straight into Lin Ruoruo's eyes. Lin Ruoruo caught a hint of arrogance in Muxin's eyes. "Miss Lin, you came here to find me, right?" Muxin asked knowingly. "I know everything about you and Jianing," Lin Ruoruo said softly. Whether it was arguing or talking, Lin Ruoruo's voice wouldn't be too loud. "I also know about you and him. He also told me that he doesn't like you, and that it's always been your wishful thinking," Muxin said. "I saw him with your son just now. That scene was very heartwarming." Lin Ruoruo smiled bitterly. "You already have a son, so I have no hope." Muxin was stunned. Did Mu Xiao tell Ban Jianing the truth? Ban Jianing knew that he was their son. It didn't matter. Now that a love rival had appeared, it was time to let Ban Jianing know that Mu Xiao was his flesh and blood. There was nothing wrong with loving each other, but it was painful for a woman to love the wrong man. But facing a love rival, Muxin wouldn't admit defeat. She looked at Lin Ruoruo sincerely. "Miss Lin, even if we don't have a son, you still have no chance." Lin Ruoruo's expression changed slightly. She smiled bitterly. "Yes, I never had a chance. The woman Jianing has always loved is me. I love him very much now. Even if we don't have a child, I won't let go easily," Muxin said. Lin Ruoruo looked at Muxin sadly. "Jianing is really good. He's friendly to his friends and employees. I dream of marrying him." Muxin smiled. "Miss Lin, I'm really sorry. Then you can only marry him in your dreams. In reality, I will marry him." Damn it, she had to hurry and register with Ban Jianing. "I just want to know why, all these years, you're a woman with a child, but you're not willing to look for him. With his help, you don't have to work so hard." Lin Ruoruo looked at Muxin sadly. At this moment, she was no longer as glamorous as she used to be. Instead, she was a little woman who had been heartbroken. Looking at her, she was even more haggard than Muxin. After all, she had been sick and hadn't had a good rest. She had also gone to act. Then, when she found out that Ban Jianing had a son, she had been deeply affected. 5 years ago, I called him. At the time, he was still overseas, and a woman answered his call. She said that she was his girlfriend. I wanted to tell him that I was pregnant. When Lin Ruoruo heard this, she pondered for a moment. Her eyelashes trembled, and a hint of surprise flashed across her eyes. She looked at Mu Axian. "So it's you." Mu Axian nodded and smiled. "I didn't expect that the woman who answered the phone back then was you. Miss Lin, I'm very stubborn. When I heard that you were Jianing's girlfriend, I was very angry. I laughed at his hypocrisy and said that he liked me. Not long after he went abroad, he had a girlfriend. I was angry and never contacted him." Chapter 1455. Lin Ruoruo was speechless. "Ban Jianing has always liked me. He said that he will only love me in his life. You must think that I'm not as good as you in all aspects. You've been by his side for a few years, but he doesn't like you. You must think it's unfair. Actually, it's even more unfair to me." Lin Ruoruo's eyes flashed and she looked at Muxin in confusion. "How is it unfair that he loves you so much? You've only been separated for 5 years, but in the future, you can be happy together for the rest of your life. This is very fair to you." Muxin shook her head. "No, it's not fair. But I don't care if it's fair or not. I've fallen in love with him. I don't care about the past. Mushin looked into Lin Ruoro's eyes. You know that Jenning's father was once the president, right? Lin Ruoro nodded. Then do you know that Jenning has been living in a mental hospital until 6 years ago? Lin Ruoro was surprised. I don't know. When the Ban family was hunted down, it was my grandfather and parents who protected Jenning with their lives. My family was originally a very prestigious military family. Because my family saved Jenning, they were assassinated and the family declined. I also know that it's my duty to protect the Emperor. But because of this, Jenning has to make it up to me for the rest of his life. Mushin wasn't happy. She looked up and smiled at Lin Ruoro. This is my advantage. My family died because of Jenning, and my family declined because of the Ban family. Now, Jenning is going to get married because of me. In order to get me, he once ruined my relationship with my first love and made me lose face in public. He won't let other men pursue me. I've thought it through. I want to take revenge on Jenning. I want to pester him for the rest of my life. I want all of his love. If he doesn't dare to give me all of his love, I'll let my dead grandfather, Daddy, and Mommy come out in the middle of the night to scare him. I'll let him chase away any woman who tries to get close to him. If he doesn't chase them away, I'll strangle him. She wasn't as tall as Lin Ruoro, but her aura increased with her words. Lin Ruoro frowned slightly and looked at Mushin in disbelief. How can you be so violent and say such things? She even let her dead grandfather and parents come out in the middle of the night to scare him and strangle him to death. Lin Ruoro felt violent. Mushin shrugged. I've always been this violent. Growing up on a ranch, I have a brash personality and I'm not gentle. When I was young, I learned how to ride horses and herd sheep with my brother. When I wanted to eat mutton, I would even kill people myself. There are 2 cows on the ranch. When there's milk, I milk it. Speaking of this, Muaxian couldn't help but laugh. A cow's milk is very big. I would pull it mischievously, causing the cow to bleat. Aren't those bleating sheep? Lin Ruoro questioned. More or less. Mushin, it seems that Jenning likes you because of your personality. He wants a gentle and sensual woman, and I can satisfy him. But he doesn't want a woman like that. What he wants is you. Lin Ruoro looked at Muaxian and sighed. As a woman who grew up on a ranch, she gave Lin Ruoro a forthright feeling. Although Mushin looked feminine, it was because of this that Jenning was fascinated by her. He could be gentle and forthright. He could elegantly sip tea with you and drink wine with you. Miss Lin, I just want to say that Jenning is mine. He's been mine for a long time. I sincerely hope that you can get over it and not be stubborn. You can accept other men who are good to you, Mushin said from the bottom of her heart. Damn it, she thought that Lin Ruoro was here to challenge her. Why did the situation change as they talked? Chapter 1456. Lin Ruoro forced a smile. I'll try to let go of him. Mushin smiled. It's not about trying. You must let go. Otherwise, you'll be hurt even more. Don't you have anything else to say to me? Mushin guessed that she was going to eat seafood. Before I saw you, I really had a lot to say to you. For example, I wanted you to let go and give Jenning to me. Give? Was that possible? Mushin chuckled in her heart. But after hearing what you said, I think I have to deal with my feelings rationally. I've sacrificed a lot for Jenning. 5 years of youth, 5 years of hard work, working day and night to earn money for Star Entertainment. But after hearing what you said, what did I do? I liked him for 5 years, but you took care of his son for him. You worked hard for 5 years. Your family became like this because of him. I worked hard to earn money for Star Entertainment, but I also earned a lot of money, status, and fame. As for you, other than Jianing and your son, you don't have anything else. If Jianing doesn't love you, you'll suffer more than me. Muxin suddenly didn't know what to say. She pursed her lips. If Ban Jianing hadn't come to her and made her fall in love with him, she wouldn't have cared if she didn't have Ban Jianing. At most, she would work hard to raise her son. When she was old, her son would take care of her. But now, she fell in love with Ban Jianing. If Ban Jianing chose Lin Ruoruo and gave up on her, she would not only suffer, but also hate. Yes, she would hate. She would hate Ban Jianing for the rest of her life. She looked up and looked at Lin Ruoruo honestly. Miss Lin, Jianing and I love each other. With Jianing's personality, he won't like a woman he doesn't like, even if you do a lot for him. I know. I know him. Lin Ruoruo smiled bitterly. When we went back to M City a while ago, we planned to register. They were going to get married. Lin Ruoruo knew that she was already an outsider. I still have to film in the afternoon. I'm leaving. Lin Ruoruo turned around sadly. Miss Lin. Muxin suddenly called her. Lin Ruoruo stopped but didn't turn around. Mu Axian looked at her back deeply. You're not feeling well, so you should rest more. Don't work so hard. At a time like this, she was actually concerned about him. Tears welled up in Lin Ruoruo's eyes. I will. I've long planned to take a break after filming this drama. In any case, she had earned enough money to last her a lifetime. She had once worked hard for Ban Jianing. Now that she knew that she wouldn't have the chance, why was she still so persistent? Seeing Lin Ruoruo get into the car and drive out of Spring Breeze neighborhood, Muxin walked out of the neighborhood and called for a taxi. When they arrived at the seafood restaurant designated by Ban Jianing and Mu Xiao were already seated in the restaurant. Ban Jianing ordered a lot of seafood. Almost all the varieties in the restaurant were available. Mu Xiao was hungry, so some seafood was served on the table. Mu Xiao was eating with relish. Daddy, this is delicious. Mu Xiao picked up a piece of seafood that he didn't even know what it was and put it into his mouth. Ban Jianing looked at Mu Xiao dotingly. This kid, after the first time he called him daddy, he refused to change it. However, Ban Jianing didn't intend to let him change it. It was good that he called him that. I thought you were going to put it into my mouth, Ban Jianing said. Chapter 1457. If you want to eat, you can take it. Mommy said that if we do everything ourselves, we will have ample food and clothing, Mu Xiao said in a childish voice. Because he was chewing, his words were slurred. Ban Jianing raised his head and looked at the door. He saw Mu Axian walking in. His eyes flashed slightly and he curled his lips. Your mommy is here. Mu Xiao said, oh yeah, and then smiled at Ban Jianing. Daddy, you can let the waiter serve the dishes. Okay. Ban Jianing waved and called the waiter to serve the dishes. Mommy, you're later than us. Mu Xiao waited for Mu Axian to sit down and said to her with a smile. I met Lin Ruoruo in the neighborhood, Mu Axian said. When Ban Jianing heard that, he frowned and a hint of worry flashed in his eyes. She didn't make things difficult for you, right? Mu Axian snorted. Can she make things difficult for me? Then what did she say to you? Mu Xiao asked. She wanted to challenge me and make me leave Ban Jianing. Mu Axian looked at Ban Jianing. Then I told her the reason why you love me and she backed off. Ban Jianing asked curiously, the reason why I love you? What reason? He had loved her. What reason was there? Just some family matters. When Ban Jianing heard that, he raised his eyebrows and looked at Muaxian unhappily. He moved his lips and was about to speak when the dishes he ordered were served. After the waiter served the dishes and left, Ban Jianing looked at Muaxian deeply. I love you, but that's not the reason. Muaxian, I don't like you because your family saved my life. I know. I said those words to force Lin Ruoro back, Muaxian said disapprovingly. She started eating. There's mantis shrimp again. Ban Jianing, I've fallen in love with mantis shrimp recently. Eat it if you fall in love. I'll eat it with you every day. Me too. Mu Xiao raised his hand and looked at them warningly. You're not allowed to eat behind my back. You have to bring me along. Ban Jianing smiled dotingly. Muaxian stuck her tongue out at Mu Xiao. I won't bring you along. I'll pack it for you. We want to be alone. Ban Jianing thought for a moment and nodded. That's right. I want to date your mommy. With me around, you can date too, Mu Xiao said. Do you like being a third wheel that much? Ban Jianing smiled warmly. Don't worry, I'm the third wheel. I'll illuminate you and let you see each other's hearts more clearly. It seems that it does make some sense, Mu Xin said. Ban Jianing said coldly, what's the point? I can let you see my heart clearly even when I'm in the dark. TSK. Muaxian pursed her lips with a frivolous look that deserved a beating. She was still groping around in the dark. She wouldn't even know if she slept with the light on. Mu Xiao looked at Muaxian with a grin as he peeled the shrimp. Seeing that Muaxian was no longer angry, he was very happy. She really hoped that the two of them could always be happy. After eating the seafood, Ban Jianing went to the 4S shop to buy a car for Mu Xin. There were still 2 cars parked in the garage of Ban Jianing's villa. They were both limited edition and very eye-catching. Mu Xin didn't like to drive that kind of car. She liked to drive the Volkswagen brand. After arriving at the 4S store, she chose a Land Rover. She liked Land Rover off-road cars. It could be said that she loved them. In M City, she had always been driving Land Rovers. After trying it out, Mu Xin couldn't bear to part with the car she chose. Since she liked it so much, Ban Jianing naturally had to buy it for her. I like it so much. When Ban Jianing went to pay for the procedures, Mu Xin circled around the car. Mu Xiao stood at the side and looked at her mesmerized face. He couldn't help but ask, is he as handsome as Daddy? Why don't I see you being so obsessed with Daddy? Chapter 1458. Muaxian smiled. How can your daddy compare to him? When Mu Xiao heard that, he glared at Muaxian sternly. What did you say? Muaxian glanced at Mu Xiao and saw that he was glaring at her sternly. She hurriedly smiled. I was wrong, I was wrong. I'm more infatuated with your daddy than with him. Without your daddy, where would I have him? Mommy, you have to change your personality. You have to be gentle. What the hell is gentle? Is it edible? Sigh, forget it. You can't be gentle, but you have to think of Daddy more. Muaxian nodded solemnly. I will. After filming Golden Phoenix, I will propose to him. When Mu Xiao heard that, he looked at his mommy with admiration. That's more like it. Ban Jianing came out. From afar, he could see the mother and daughter talking. The atmosphere was warm. What are you talking about? Mommy said that after filming Golden Phoenix, I will propose to you. Mu Xiao jogged to Ban Jianing and hugged his thigh. Daddy, are you happy? Ban Jianing lowered his head and looked at Mu Xiao in a daze. His beautiful eyes were smiling. Propose. He raised his head and looked at Muaxian. Mu Axian turned around shyly with her back facing him. He laughed and looked at Mu Axian's back view. You want to propose to me? He was looking forward to the scene of her proposing to him. A woman proposing to a man was more romantic than a man proposing to a woman, right? Women themselves were romantic creatures. I was just joking with Mu Xiao. Mu Axian gritted her teeth. Seriously, didn't she just say that she wanted to propose to him? What was there to be embarrassed about? Why was her back facing him? Mu Axian turned around and glared at Mu Xiao. Gossipy boy. Mommy, don't be shy. Your son is already so old. Why are you still shy? He really did not understand. Ban Jianing curled his lips and smiled charmingly. If I knew that a car could capture your heart, I would have given it to you long ago. I'm not touched because of the car. Mu Axian corrected him. I'm in love. That's why I want to get married. Ban Jianing walked over with Mu Xiao and stood in front of Mu Axian with a faint smile. Actually, I want to propose to you too. The way he looked at her was extremely gentle. When? Mu Axian subconsciously blurted out. Ban Jianing couldn't help but laugh. His laughter was clear and bright like a spring breeze. Of course I can't say it. It's a pleasant surprise. Just don't surprise me. Mu Axian pouted. Looking at him, she suddenly laughed. She liked his smile, her laughter and smile were so alluring. Ban Jianing looked at her tenderly. No, I won't. I won't give you any surprise, sadness. Mushin, please listen carefully. What I want to give you is only happiness, tranquility, and money. That's all. Mu Axian raised her eyebrows. Ban Jianing leaned forward and pecked her red lips. Of course, there's still me. As long as you're willing to accept it, I can give it to you at any time. Mu Axian blushed. She lowered her head and smiled shyly. In the past, Ban Jianing could not see her coquettish side. Now, when he saw her like this from time to time, he felt that she was very charming and arousing. Mushin, you're so beautiful. He praised her sincerely. Mu Axian smiled. You're very handsome. Ha! Ban Jianing was amused. Io, you guys are so mushy. I'm embarrassed to be in the middle. Mu Xiao stomped his feet and laughed. Chapter 1459. Ban Jianing pushed his head. If you're embarrassed, then go away. Don't disturb our romance. Mu Xiao tilted his head and smiled. Sorry, if I don't go away, I'll disturb your romance. Do you want a younger brother and sister? Ban Jianing asked. Mu Axian looked at Ban Jianing in surprise, her face turning even redder. What was this man trying to say? Yes. Could it be that you want to make a baby with mommy here? Mu Xiao's face was innocent, but the words he said made people feel that he wasn't innocent at all. Kid. Ban Jianing smiled. Of course not here. Alright, let's eat. Mu Axian blushed and looked at them reproachfully. There's so much delicious food, but it can't stop your mouths. If you don't eat now, it won't taste good when it gets cold. Ban Jianing looked at Mu Axian with interest and said to Mu Xiao, Mommy is right. Seafood is only delicious when it's hot. After eating the seafood, Ban Jianing brought Mu Axian back to his villa. He brought Mu Axian to look at the villa. Mu Axian felt that the villa was very simple but luxurious. Especially the kitchen, it was well renovated. Ban Jianing hugged Mu Axian and looked at everything in the kitchen. He smiled. When I saw the workers renovating the kitchen, I thought that I would stand here and cook for you and our children in the future when I'm free. Mu Axian was touched, but her mouth didn't agree with him. TSK, whatever you say now. It's up to you to believe it or not. Do you believe that I'll follow you for the rest of my life? Ban Jianing smiled. I'm so outstanding. Many women want to follow me. Mu Axian elbowed him and scolded jokingly, get lost. All right. Ban Jianing whispered in her ear, his voice charming. How do you want to get lost? Mu Axian immediately thought of that. She blushed. I don't want to think of anything. Ban Jianing, be serious. We're discussing the renovation. How do you want to renovate? Mu Axian took a deep breath. I think it's pretty good. Mu Axian pulled Ban Jianing's hand and acted like a spoiled child. Jianing, there's no need to renovate. This is still very new. Of course, I bought it 2 years ago. Of course it was new. I know you want me to live a good life, but I think this villa is fine. I like this kind of decoration. Ban Jianing looked at her. Really? Muxin nodded. Really? Give me the money for the renovation. What a miser. Ban Jianing smiled dotingly and gently knocked on her forehead. If you follow me, you won't have to worry about not having enough money. You don't know. I've been taking care of Mu Xiao all by myself for the past few years. I've been living a poor life. I've never been poor before. Okay, I'll do whatever my wife says. If my wife says I won't renovate, then I won't renovate. If my wife says she wants money, then I'll give her money. However, since husband is so good to wife, shouldn't wife reward husband? Ban Jianing looked at Mu Axian with a faint smile. Ban Jianing was very handsome, especially when he smiled like that. He was so handsome that it made people's hearts itch. Muxin stood on tiptoe and kissed Ban Jianing's handsome face with a smack. She looked at him, her eyes flickering like the radiance emitted by jade, incomparably dazzling. She was very happy and smiled brightly. Is this reward enough? Ban Jianing shook his head and sked. Not enough. Muxin kissed him again. Ban Jianing still sked. Not enough. Chapter 1460. Muxin kissed Ban Jianing on the cheek again. Ban Jianing smiled and still clicked his tongue. Not enough. Muxin could only kiss him again, but Ban Jianing still said it was not enough. Muxin suddenly punched Ban Jianing in the chest. Ban Jianing, that's enough. Honey, why are you suddenly attacking me? Who's the honey? We're not married yet. The next day, Muxin was going to the set to film. The 3-day holiday was over. She and Sister May came to the set and saw Lin Ruoruo. Lin Ruoruo was in good condition. She sat there and put on makeup for her makeup artist. Muxin knew that she would be acting with the female lead today. When she saw Lin Ruoruo, Muxin only stopped and looked at her for 3 seconds. Then she said to Sister May, let's go prepare too. Sister May nodded. You only have 3 scenes today, and they'll be later. We can slowly prepare. Muxin smiled. Okay. Muxin changed into her costume and put on makeup. Lin Ruoruo was already rehearsing with the female lead. Lin Ruoruo's acting was really good. She cried and laughed. Her expressions and actions were on point. Her foundation was also very strong. It was very easy to rehearse with her. After one scene, Lin Ruoruo came down and let the makeup artist touch up her makeup. Then she saw Muxin. After touching up her makeup, it was not her turn to go on stage. She came over and took the initiative to look for Muxin. Hi, Miss Lin. She had taken the initiative to look for her. She couldn't be rude, right? Lin Ruoruo smiled sweetly. Your scene today is with the male lead, right? Mushin nodded. Yes. Good luck. Lin Ruoro cheered Mushin on. Mushin smiled and said, thank you. The two of them exchanged very polite words and then went to do their own things. After Lin Ruoro left, Sister May came up and looked at her. She said to Lin Ruoro, isn't it like an enemy meeting a love rival? Isn't Miss Lin a little abnormal? Mushin smiled. I don't care about that. Aren't you afraid that she's pretending? No way. But so what if she's pretending? It's useless in front of me. Sister May thought about it. That's right. It's useless in front of you. If she wants to pretend, she has to pretend in front of President Ban. It's even more useless. Why? Because your class always likes women like me. You sure are confident. Big Sister May smiled. At this moment, Muaxian's phone rang. Mushin's bag was in Sister May's hands. Hearing her phone ring, Sister May opened her bag and took out her phone while smiling. It must be the class president. She took out her phone and looked at it. It's not the class president. It's Teacher Wen. Teacher Wen. When Muaxian heard that it was Mu Zhao's teacher, her heart couldn't help but thump. Could it be that something had happened to Mu Zhao? She quickly snatched the phone from Sister May's hand. Hello, Teacher Wen. Mushin, Mu Zhao is injured and is being sent to the Second People's Hospital. Are his injuries serious? Muaxian's mind buzzed, and she suddenly stood up from the chair. Elder Sister May was worried when she saw Mu Zhao's reaction. Mu Zhao was injured. Teacher Wen, she was accidentally knocked down by a classmate. She rolled down the stairs and hit her forehead. The injury doesn't look very serious, but I don't know why it keeps bleeding. Muaxian's face was pale. She said anxiously, I'll go over now. After hanging up the phone, Muaxian didn't even have time to inform the director. She put on her costume and left the set in a hurry. Chapter 1461. Sister May hurriedly followed behind her. Mushin, is Mu Zhao seriously injured? Mushin said as she ran, there's a lot of blood. When the two of them rushed to the Second People's Hospital, they saw Ms. Wen in the emergency room. Ms. Wen told her about Mu Zhao's injury and then told Mushin that the doctor saw that Mu Zhao's bleeding was difficult to stop and sent him to the emergency room. Now, they were treating his wound and doing other tests. His forehead was bruised and bleeding non-stop. Now that he was in the emergency room, Mushin was very worried that he had hit his head. She was very nervous and scared. She was so scared that her whole body and heart were trembling. Uneasiness was written all over her face. Ms. Wen kept apologizing at the side. She only felt that mosquitoes were buzzing in her ears. She couldn't hear what Ms. Wen was saying. She grabbed Sister May's hand tightly. The more scared she was, the stronger her grip was. Sister May felt that the bones in her wrist were about to break. Don't be so nervous. Mu Zhao will be fine. Sister May comforted her. In these few years, Mushin had gotten used to having Mu Zhao by her side. Once, she dreamed that Mu Zhao was snatched away by Ban Jianing. In the dream, Ban Jianing pointed at her and scolded. You dare to secretly give birth to my child? You dare to let my flesh and blood suffer so much outside? Mushin, from now on, you can never see Mu Zhao again in this life. It was just a dream, but when she woke up in fright, she was already in tears. She was quite frightened by Ban Jianing in the dream. When she returned to M City, there wasn't a second when she didn't think of him. Mu Zhao was her everything. Without Mu Zhao, she couldn't live. Now that she heard that he was injured, how could she not be afraid? How could she be at ease? At this moment, the door of the examination room opened. Who is Mu Zhao's family? A middle-aged doctor stood at the door with a report and shouted. I am. Mu Xin rushed forward and looked at the doctor anxiously. I am. Doctor, is my son okay? The hospital used the most advanced equipment to test the patient's blood. The results are out. Mu Xiao has leukemia. What? Sister Mei and Ms. Wen shouted in shock. Mu Xin was thunderstruck and her mind was buzzing. Her son. Her son had leukemia. Impossible. How could this be? The doctor did not want to see such a situation. He looked at Mu Axian and said, if we find the bone marrow in time, the surgery will definitely be successful. Bone marrow, surgery, Mu Xin's entire body floated up. I'll look for bone marrow. I'll look for bone marrow. She muttered. It was as if she had lost her soul. Her face was so pale that there wasn't a trace of blood in it. Mu Axian, you have to calm down. Everything will be fine as long as the surgery is successful. We can look for the chairman. The chairman is Mu Zhao's father. Sister Mei comforted Mu Axian and reminded her at the same time. That was right, Mu Axian suddenly woke up. Ban Jianing was Mu Zhao's father. His bone marrow should be compatible, and then the surgery could be arranged quickly. Mu Axian looked at Sister Mei anxiously. My phone. Sister Mei quickly gave her the phone, and she quickly dialed Ban Jianing's number. The phone rang a few times before the other party picked it up. It was not Ban Jianing's voice. It was a gentlewoman's voice. Hello, President Ban is in a meeting. Please call back later. At this moment, Ban Jianing was having an urgent meeting. Star Entertainment had signed a big IP, which was a plagiarized work. It had a huge impact in this market. Chapter 1462. Ban Jianing had always been strict with IP, but he did not expect that the film and television department would produce a plagiarized work. In order to solve this issue that the whole country was concerned about, Ban Jianing requested that no one was allowed to turn on their phones during the meeting. His phone was in his secretary's hand. Mu Xin called, and the secretary answered the call. When the secretary answered the call, she was looking at an important document that was going to be sent to the meeting later. She did not see the caller ID, so she answered the call directly. I don't want later. I want it now. Please pass the phone to him. Mu Xin said anxiously. The secretary had been working for Ban Jianing for more than a year. She always called Ban Jianing's phone. There were many women who wanted to meet Ban Jianing. Miss, I'm sorry. Mr. Ban is in a meeting. The secretary replied to Mu Xin in a sweet voice. She totally thought that Mu Xin was a woman who wanted to pursue Ban Jianing. Tell him that I'm Mu Xin, the mother of his child. The secretary smiled when she heard that. Miss, Mr. Ban is currently single and has no children. Miss, if there's nothing else, I'll hang up. The secretary hung up the phone and did not take Mu Xin's words to heart. She focused on her work. I'm going to the office to look for him. Mu Xin rushed out of the hospital with her phone. Sister Gu was afraid that something would happen to her on the way, so she chased after her. Mu Xin, let me drive, Sister Mei said. Hurry. Mu Xin, there's no hurry. We can't do the surgery immediately after finding the bone marrow. The hospital has to make arrangements. Don't panic. If you panic, I'll panic too. She could not panic when driving. When she arrived at Xing Entertainment, the receptionist did not stop the staff who were not from Xing Entertainment because of Sister Mei. Sister Mei told the receptionist that Mu Xin was a newcomer who wanted to sign a contract with Xing Entertainment, and the receptionist believed her. Sister Mei knew Ban Jianing's office and where the meeting was. She brought Mushin to the meeting room. In the meeting room, the atmosphere was heavy. The higher-ups of the film and television department were badly scolded by Ban Jianing. Ban Jianing wanted them to come up with the best solution as soon as possible. This was because the author of the novel had sold the copyright to another film and television company. And this film company happened to be at odds with Star Entertainment. The other party was making a fuss about taking Star Entertainment to court. Ban Jianing sat there with a cold aura, waiting for the film and television department to come up with a solution. His gaze was as sharp as a blade, and none of the higher-ups dared to look him in the eye. It was very scary. The entire conference room was like a 1,000-year-old ice house. It was so cold that everyone's backs were stiff. Ban Jianing looked at them as if he wanted to kill them. They could only bury their heads in writing the proposal. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Suddenly, the door of the meeting room was pushed open, and it was quite loud. Ban Jianing's sharp and cold eyes swept over. When he saw the person who had come, he raised his eyebrows slightly. Muaxin. The secretary didn't notice the change in emotions in Ban Jianing's eyes. He apologized to Ban Jianing, "President, I couldn't stop her. She insisted on breaking in." Muaxin couldn't care less about the astonished gazes of all the higher-ups. She hurried in, her face full of tears. Seeing her like this, Ban Jianing got up, frowned, and looked at her in confusion. Just when everyone thought that Mushin would be strangled to death by the furious Ban Jianing looked at the woman who had already walked in front of him and asked in astonishment, "Mushin? What's wrong? Who bullied you?" "Jianing." Mushin's legs went soft and she could no longer stand. With a plop, she knelt down in front of Ban Jianing. Chapter 1463. All the higher-ups were dumbfounded. It wasn't that Mushin had knelt down, Ban Jianing was dumbfounded. It was that Ban Jianing no longer had that murderous aura. The way he looked at this woman was filled with gentleness, heartache, and doubt. Anyway, it was the way a husband would look at his beloved wife. "Mushin, are you dumb? Get up." Ban Jianing lifted Mushin up. "Please save Muxiao." Mushin cried. "Muxiao is in the hospital. The doctor said that he has leukemia. You are his father, only you can save him, Muxiao has leukemia." Ban Jianing was shocked. Everyone in the meeting room was even more dumbfounded. They stared at them with their mouths agape. All of this seemed like a dream. Wasn't CEO Ban single? When did he have a child? "Muxiao is your son, he's your son." Mushin cried. "He's not Qing Juinggua's son." This time, it wasn't just Ban Jianing's employees who were dumbfounded. Even Ban Jianing was stunned. Muxiao was his son. Seeing Ban Jianing stunned and Mushin breaking down because she had found Ban Jianing, Sister Mei cried so hard that she couldn't speak clearly. In a panic, she rushed up and said loudly to Ban Jianing, "CEO Ban, Muxiao is your flesh and blood. 5 years ago, at your sister's wedding banquet," without waiting for Sister Mei to finish, Ban Jianing suddenly came back to his senses. He pulled Mushin up and even carried her horizontally. He said to Sister Mei, "Go to the hospital." After Ban Jianing left, the higher-ups took a long time to come back to their senses. Executive A, what's the situation? CEO Ban is married. Executive B, why do I feel like it's a scene of two men fighting over a woman? CEO Ban doesn't even know that he has a child. Executive C, is this meeting over? Executive D, CEO Ban's child has leukemia. I don't think CEO Ban is in the mood to deal with this matter of plagiarism. Executive A, then let's discuss and change the content of the script. We'll change the roles and let the author create a novel with the same name in the shortest time possible. Executive B, that's all we can do for now. When this storm blows over, we'll settle the score with the author. Executive D, what score? It's our negligence. Executive A, speaking of which, CEO Ban's child is sick. Should we go to the hospital to visit him? The secretary said, go ahead if you want to die. President Ban has been hiding the fact that he has a child because he doesn't want the media to know. The higher-ups were stunned again. They didn't want to die. At the hospital, the doctor took Ban Jianning's bone marrow for a checkup to see if it matched Mu Xiao's bone marrow. It would take some time for the results to come out. They sat in a VIP waiting room. Ban Jianning saw that Mu Xin was so nervous that she was trembling all over, and his heart ached slightly. He hugged her in his arms and comforted her, don't be afraid, big sister is already here. If my bone marrow doesn't match with Mu Xiao's, they're still my sister's. Have you forgotten that it was my sister's bone marrow that saved my life? I'm really scared, don't be afraid, I'm here. Mu Xin, you don't have to be so fragile. She was like a pearl that would disappear with a light drop. Boss, Mu Xin. Madame Mei happily pushed open the door to the waiting room. Behind her was Mu Xiao's attending doctor. Sister Mei couldn't hide her thoughts. Before the doctor could speak, she said to Ban Jianning and Mu Axayan, the results are out. Mr. Ban's bone marrow matches Mu Xiao's. He can undergo surgery. Chapter 1464. When they heard this news, Ban Jianning and Mu Xin were both shocked. Then, their hearts surged with joy. Mu Xin's eyes flickered. It was like the light of hope, but also like the light of mist. She looked at Ban Jianning, feeling excited. This was great. His bone marrow was compatible with Mu Xiao's. There was no need to spend time looking for bone marrow. Mu Xiao could undergo surgery as soon as possible. Ban Jianning's eyes flashed with a stormy sea. He could use his bone marrow to be Mu Xiao's life. Just as they were feeling excited, the doctor looked at Ban Jianning with a serious expression. Mr. Ban, you can't extract bone marrow. Ban Jianning looked at the doctor. The other party is my son. I can extract it. 6 years ago, you had a bone marrow surgery. You are a patient, the doctor said. Ban Jianning's mind buzzed when he heard this. Mu Xin and Sister Mei's expressions changed. Sister Mei looked at Ban Jianning in surprise. This tall and strong boss was also a leukemia patient? Then Mu Xiao's illness was hereditary. Ban Jianning couldn't extract bone marrow. Then Mu Xiao, Mu Xin's heart suddenly sank to the bottom. Wait for my sister to come. Ban Jianning said firmly. If my sister's bone marrow doesn't match, use mine. The doctor looked at Ban Jianning. Mr. Ban, our hospital will also try to find a healthy person whose bone marrow matches. Go and arrange it. Hurry. Ban Jianning said in a low voice. After the doctor said a few more things about Mu Xiao, he went out. Sister Mei also went out with the doctor. She also went to extract bone marrow for a checkup to see if her bone marrow matched Mu Xiao's. Mu Xin's bone marrow was extracted for a checkup. The results were also out. Her bone marrow didn't match Mu Xiao's. After the doctor and Sister Mei went out, only Ban Jianning and Mu Xin were left in the lounge. Mu Axayan's heart, which had just been raised, sank again. Her entire person became heavy. Ban Jianning felt her worry. He sat beside her and hugged her. He said gently, Mu Xin, it will be fine. Mu Xiao will be fine. No matter what, I have to save Mu Xiao. If my sister's bone marrow doesn't match Mu Xiao's, use mine, Ban Jianning said. His low voice was filled with certainty and determination. No, you can't. Have you forgotten that you've undergone bone marrow surgery before? Mu Axayan said with a heavy heart. You were the one who donated your bone marrow to me. Since my bone marrow matches Mu Zhao's, your bone marrow should match his as well. Jianing. Mu Axayan leaned on Ban Jianing's shoulder. Will the bone marrow surgery be very painful? Ban Jianing's gaze was deep. He lowered his head and looked deeply at Mu Axayan. Even if I say it doesn't hurt, you won't believe me. Mu Axayan looked sad. Her face was full of worry and heartache. Mu Xiao is so young, he has to bear such pain. And I can't help him at all. I'm his mother, so why is my bone marrow incompatible with his? Mu Xiao is very strong. Ban Jianing didn't know how to comfort Mu Axayan. He had leukemia before, and now it was Mu Zhao's turn. He suspected that it was hereditary. Fortunately, Song Wuyo didn't have it. As for him, he didn't know if it was inherited from his father's family or his mother's family. He had never looked into it. When he was sick, he did not even think about his family's medical history. Now that Mu Shaoxing had the same illness as him, he could not help but think about his family's medical history. If it was really hereditary, he planned to not have any more children with Mu Axayan. Chapter 1465. That night, Song Wuyo, Gu Yanhao, and Xiao Bao arrived at a city and appeared at the hospital. Once they arrived at the hospital, Gu Yanhao asked the hospital to do a bone marrow examination for him, Song Wuyo, and Xiao Bao. Ban Jianing saw that Xiao Bao had been sent for a bone marrow examination. Ban Jianing pulled Song Wuyo back. Sister, let's forget about Xiao Bao. She's still so young. It's okay. Xiao Bao is also a hope. At least they were related by blood. Because of Gu Yanhao, the hospital didn't dare to be careless or neglect. Soon, the results were out. Song Wuyo's bone marrow matched Mu Zhao's. This news made everyone's anxious hearts loosen up. Mu Xiao had long realized that he wasn't sick at all. His injured forehead was bandaged. He was sitting on the bed and eating the porridge that Mu Axayan had made for him. He didn't expect that so many people would look at him when he was injured. He behaved very obediently and hid his usual arrogance of an old man. Gu Yanhao and Song Wuyo sat at the end of the bed and looked at him. Mu Xiao guessed from their eyes that they must know that he was Ban Jianing's son. How do you feel, Jianing? Gu Yanhao shifted his gaze from Mu Zhao's face to Ban Jianing. Ban Jianing sat there with a complicated expression and looked at Mu Xiao. After being asked by Gu Yanhao, he subconsciously said what he was feeling. It's like a dream. It was really like a dream. He had always thought that he was a virgin and that Mu Xiao was Qing Juingguo's son. Suddenly, he found out that Mu Xiao was his son. He felt like he had just woken up from a nap and had a 4-year-old son. The truth was that it was indeed so. Suddenly, he had a 4-year-old son. Ban Jianing's feelings now were really indescribable. He had always thought that Mu Xiao was Qing Juingguo's son. He had always wondered why such a smart child was Qing Juingguo's and not his. He had always felt that it was a pity that Mu Xin and Qing Juingguo had given birth to such a handsome and adorable son. And now, the child that he had always hoped to be his son had really become his flesh and blood. He really felt like he was dreaming. However, this dream was not good. His son had leukemia. Mu Axayan, why did you hide it from us? Song Wuyo looked at Mu Axayan and asked. Mu Xin sighed helplessly, isn't it because Jianing has a girlfriend? If you have a girlfriend, you can also tell us that you have Jianing's son. Doesn't Jianing know now? Mu Xin smiled. Ban Jianing, if Mu Xiao wasn't sick, were you planning to keep it a secret? You used to hide it from me because you thought I had a girlfriend. Didn't you find out later that I didn't have a girlfriend? Why are you still hiding it from me? Mu Axian felt guilty. I want to test if you really love me. Mu Xin, you really don't have to try this. Jianing really loves you. Whether in this life or in the previous life, he loved her so much. It's all good now. We can finally be reunited. Mu Xiao did not want them to blame his mommy, so he spoke up to smooth things over. Mu Axian's heart was still heavy. After feeding Mu Xiao, Mu Axian hugged him, her face full of worry. Mu Xiao sensed that something was wrong with her. Not only her, but even Ban Jianing was not happy. Mu Xiao's clear eyes swept across everyone present. Then he asked Mu Axian in a childish voice, "Mommy, did something bad happen?" Chapter 1466. Mu Axian tried her best to squeeze out a smile. It's not a bad thing. As long as Mu Xiao is strong, everything is good. Mu Xiao thought for a moment and asked, "Am I seriously ill?" Mu Axian hugged him tightly and said in a choked voice, "Mu Xiao is so smart. You understand everything when mommy tells you." Seeing her like this and hearing her choked voice, Ban Jianing's heart ached. Recalling what Sister May had told him about her hardships when she was pregnant and how she didn't have a good confinement period after giving birth, he suddenly wanted to give her the best in the world. But he knew that the best thing for her now was Mu Xiao. When Mu Xiao heard that he was seriously ill, not only was he not afraid, he even comforted Mu Axian. "Mommy, it's okay. I'm not afraid of pain. People aren't gods. What's there to be afraid of?" Hearing his words, Song Wuyo and Gu Yanhao both felt that this child was very sensible. All these years, Mu Axian had really put in a lot of effort to educate him and nurture him so well. When Mu Axian heard this, her eyes almost popped out of their sockets. She lowered her head and kissed Mu Xiao's hair. Ban Jianing and Gu Yanhao looked at them quietly. There was no point in saying anything now. Mu Xiao held Mu Axian's hand. "Mommy, you haven't told me what illness it is. It's a little serious. I need surgery." Mu Xiao smiled indifferently. "Mommy, don't worry. I'll be fine after the surgery." "Yes, you'll be fine after the surgery." Mommy is very relieved. "It's just that when I think about you suffering a little pain, Mommy can't help but feel heartbroken for you." Mu Xiao's words made Mu Axian's tears drip down. There was no mother who wouldn't be heartbroken and worried when she saw her child sick. Mu Axian hugged Mu Xiao tightly. She wished that she was the one who was sick. She wished that she could bear all the pain for Mu Xiao. Ban Jianing walked over and stood in front of them, hugging them in his arms. "Mu Axian, don't be sad." Being hugged by him, she might have been touched or aggrieved, but her tears fell even harder. Gu Yanhao said softly to Song Wuyo, "Let's go out. The three of them need some peace." Song Wuyo looked at him worriedly. "You really don't need us. How can you help?" Sometimes, the more one comforted the other party, the more they wanted to cry. At this time, we'll leave the space to them. We're tired, so we'll go back and rest. All right. Song Wuyo lowered her head and looked gently at Little Treasure in her arms. Little Treasure was exhausted and was now sleeping soundly in her arms. Walking out of the ward, Song Wuyo was a little worried. "Ah ho, Jianing used to have leukemia. Now it's Mu Xiao. Do you think it's hereditary? Are you worried about yourself or our child?" Gu Yanhao asked. "Yes. You don't have to worry about that. You are the child of Mrs. Ji Er and Ban Dekhang. Ban Dekhang and Mrs. Ji Er's family are very healthy. But the mayor's mother died of leukemia." When Song Wuyo heard this, she became even more worried. "So, Jianing and Mu Xiao's condition is hereditary. Whether it is or not, at least we can operate. Medicine is also very advanced now. As long as you have money and are cheerful enough, you can fight against the disease. If that's the case, I plan to let them have fewer children. Silly woman, not all children will be like this. The mayor's mother died of leukemia, but the mayor and his siblings are very healthy. Besides, how many children do a couple want to have? Can you stop them? Gu Yanhao smiled faintly. Chapter 1467. You're right. I'm just worrying too much. Gu Yanhao patted her head. Don't think too much. Go back and have a good rest. Gu Yanhao had a very comfortable villa in a city. After coming out of the hospital, he drove towards his villa with his wife and daughter. The next day, the hospital prepared for Mu Zhao's surgery. On the third day, the surgery officially began. Song Wuyo and Mu Xiao were pushed into the operating theater. Ban Jianing, Gu Yanhao, Mu Axan, Sister Mei, and the others were all waiting anxiously and nervously. Waiting was a kind of torture, let alone at a time like this. Ban Jianing hugged Mu Axan and sat on the lounge chair. Because he was worried, his breathing became a little heavy. Their gazes were fixed on the operating theater. Time passed by minute, and the torturous wait was finally over. Mu Zhao's surgery was very successful. Hearing this news, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. When they were transferred to the VIP ward, Mu Axan stayed by Mu Zhao's side. The bone marrow transplant surgery was carried out under anesthesia. After the surgery, the patient did not feel much pain. However, Mu Xiao was a patient after all. Although he was not in much pain, his complexion was not good and he looked very weak. Usually, Mu Xiao was an elegant little prince. Now that she saw his weak side, Mu Axan's heart was about to die. Gu Yanhao was guarding Song Wuyo, who had donated her bone marrow. Song Wuyo was the one who had her bone marrow extracted and did not use anesthesia. When she came out of the operating theater, she felt pain. She was lying down in another ward to rest. In such a situation, she would be fine in 2 days. 6 years ago, she had given it to Ban Jianing and it also didn't hurt after 2 days of rest. Song Wuyo knew that Mu Zhao's surgery was very successful and was relieved. Gu Yanhao hugged Xiao Bao and sat in front of the bed to chat with her. Mommy, is Mu Xiao really my cousin? Xiao Bao's eyes were clear and innocent. Song Wuyo nodded. Yes, he's your uncle's son. Last time, he was Aunt May's son. Why is he uncle's son now? Gu Yanhao smiled. Because they lied to us. Xiao Bao pursed his lips and said, Fortunately, I don't really like him. Otherwise, I would be in trouble. When Song Wuyo and Gu Yanhao heard this, the couple looked at each other and smiled. This girl was really too cute. Song Wuyo looked at Xiao Bao and said with a smile, You and Yuan Bo are a couple. 4 days passed in the blink of an eye. Mu Zhao's condition had stabilized, but he still needed to be hospitalized. As long as he was well, Ban Jianing didn't mind going to the hospital every day. The director of the film crew knew about the relationship between Ban Jianing and Mu Axan. He also knew that their son was sick, so he didn't dare to urge Mu Axan to return to the film crew. The director asked Mu Axan to accompany her son in peace and go back to film whenever she was free. Her scenes would be pushed back and she would film other scenes first. Ban Jianing was not so relaxed. On his 4th day in the hospital, the company finally had an important meeting and asked him to go back for it. After the meeting, Ban Jianing went to Vice President Zhang Jun's office. Zhang Jun was a classmate from K country that he met when he was studying abroad. The two of them founded Xing Entertainment together. Most of the time, they were good brothers. Zhang Jun was mainly in charge of media and occasionally intervened in film and television. Seeing Ban Jianing come in, Zhang Jun, who was sitting at the table reviewing documents, looked up at him. "I'll go to the hospital with you after I finish my work." "Okay." Ban Jianing sat down opposite him and looked at him. Zhang Jun signed the documents and said, "Jianing, I didn't expect you to be the father of a 4-year-old son." Chapter 1468. Ban Jianing smiled faintly and his eyes sparkled. When he thought of Mu Xiao, he felt a warmth in his heart. The white light in the office shone on his face, making him look even more elegant and noble. He looked at Zhang Jun. "You should find a partner too." Zhang Jun smiled. "I'm not in a hurry. I like being single." Zhang Jun thought for a while and asked, "Does Ruoru know?" Ban Jianing nodded. "Yes." "How did she react?" "She got over it after crying." "Not bad. You've made your stand clear all these years. She's the one who wants to like you." "I plan to let you manage the company," Ban Jianing said. When Zhang Jun heard that, he was slightly stunned. He thought for a while and suddenly smiled. "Are you going back to M City to get married?" "I'll get married, but I still want to accompany them." Zhang Jun spread his hands. "You don't have to let me manage the company. You can accompany them at night. I want to bring them around the world." Zhang Jun was stunned and looked at Ban Jianing in surprise. "Don't tell me you don't want the company anymore." "I still have shares, but I want to live a leisurely life." "Zhang Jun, you know that I had a bone marrow transplant 6 years ago. Now, it's my son who did it. We're both leukemia patients." "So what? The surgery wasn't very successful, right? Usually, people who can live for more than 5 years are fine. You've lived for 5 years. Don't say so much. If you're a friend, help me with this." Zhang Jun said, "What's there to be busy about? I have a share in the company too. I've invested a lot of energy and money into it." Ban Jianing said, "You're more suitable to be the boss." Zhang Jun understood Ban Jianing. Actually, what he said just now was just comforting words. The father of one of his classmates overseas had a bone transplant surgery 10 years ago. His condition was very stable for 10 years. Everyone thought that he was done for. 10 years later, his condition suddenly worsened and he couldn't even undergo the surgery. In the end, he passed away. To be honest, when Zhang Jun thought of Ban Jianing's illness, his heart felt heavy. Ban Jianing was the most worthy friend in his life. He really didn't want to lose him. Zhang Jun smiled. "Jianing, don't worry and accompany them. I'm here." "Thank you, Zhang Jun. Why are you being so polite with me at this time? Are you looking for a beating? You're still the CEO. When you're not around, I'll take care of it. Now that you're back, you can take care of it. Okay, if there's anything you can't decide, you can call me. When are you going back to M City? I'll hand over the work to you and wait for Mu Xiao to get better. I want to attend the wedding as well." "Of course. If you don't come, I'll curse you to be single forever." Zhang Jun laughed. "That's exactly what I was hoping for." At the hospital, Mu Axian fed Mu Xiao porridge. Mu Xiao wanted to eat something light. After feeding her porridge, Mu Axian sat in front of the bed and peeled an apple. Knock knock, the door of the ward rang twice. Mu Xin looked up. It was Lin Ruoruo. Lin Ruoruo was wearing a white floral dress, and her waist-length hair was tied up casually. Sensual and fashionable. She came in with a fruit basket. Seeing her, Mu Xin was stunned for a moment. Then, she quickly stood up and smiled. "Miss Lin. I heard that Mu Xiao was sick, so I came. Lin Ruoruo looked at Mu Xiao on the hospital bed and smiled gently. Her voice was also very soft. Mu Xiao, how are you feeling? Chapter 1469. Mu Xiao nodded obediently. Much better. Thank you for coming to see me, Auntie Lin. Mu Axian took the fruit basket and said politely, Miss Lin, you're too polite. You even bought so many fruits. Lin Ruoruo sat down. It's boring to stay in the ward. When you're bored, you can eat fruits and talk. Mu Axian looked at Lin Ruoruo. I didn't expect you to come to see Mu Xiao. Lin Ruoruo smiled gently. Mu Xiao is Jianning's son. Lin Ruoruo looked at Mu Axian. He doesn't want me to care about him. I care about his son, okay? Mu Axian nodded generously. Of course. I have a share in his son. Mu Axian, I wish you happiness. Lin Ruoruo was also very generous. Mu Axian smiled. Thank you. Lin Ruoruo sighed. I plan to go to America after filming Golden Phoenix Charm. Mu Axian had a feeling. You won't return to China. Lin Ruoruo nodded. My parents are in America. I followed Jianning to a city to develop my career. Mu Axian pursed her lips and looked deeply at Lin Ruoruo. There was nothing wrong with love, nor was there a reason. But there were two kinds of love. One was fated and the other was not. Lin Ruoruo's love for Ban Jianning was not fated and there would be no result. Lin Ruoruo thought it through. If there was no result with Ban Jianning, there was a man in America who had always liked her. With your reputation, you can develop your career well no matter where you go, Mu Axian said. Yes. Lin Ruoruo nodded. I can do that, but I don't plan to act anymore. You plan to retire. Mu Axian was surprised. But you're still so young. You're still at the peak. Lin Ruoruo smiled indifferently. I entered this industry because Jianning's company wanted artists. It can be said that I acted for Jianning. Now that I'm leaving him and going to another company to act, it doesn't mean anything to me. Miss Lin, you can actually stay in a city. No, I've made up my mind. Lin Ruoruo looked at Mu Xin with a smile. I'm afraid that if I stay in a city, I'll become a jealous woman and try to break you and Jianning apart. I'm jealous of you now. I'm envious of you. I want to go abroad and have a new life. With another man by my side, I'll gradually forget about it. Lin Ruoruo looked at Mu Xiao and smiled. If I have a child in the future, I believe that all my thoughts will be on the child. Mu Axian smiled and said, Indeed, after having a child, one's mood will be very different. After chatting for another 5 minutes, Lin Ruoruo left. She had to go back to filming. After Lin Ruoruo left, Mu Axian fed the cut apple to Mu Xiao. Mu Xiao's black eyes quietly looked at Mu Axian. Seeing him looking at her so adorably, Mu Axian smiled and asked, Why are you looking at me like this? Mu Xiao smiled. I saw a happy smile on Mommy's face. Of course I'm happy that your condition is stable. When you fully recover, Mommy will go and pray to Buddha. No, you're happy because Auntie Lin is leaving. Mu Axian looked at Mu Xiao. Can't I? This way, I don't have to worry about whether she will seduce your daddy. Don't worry, other than you, no woman has the ability to seduce me. Ban Jianning pushed the door open and entered. Daddy. Mu Xiao was very happy to see him. Chapter 1470. Ban Jianning came over and hugged Mu Xiao. How do you feel today? Mu Xiao giggled. Very good. I don't feel any pain at all. Mu Xiao, you have to be happy. Take care of yourself. Daddy will take you out to play, Ban Jianing said. Where are we going? Mu Xiao asked. Where do you want to go? Mu Xiao shook his head. I don't know. I'm still so young. I don't even know where to go. Ban Jianing looked at Mu Axian and said, after Mu Xiao is discharged from the hospital and has some rest, let's go on a trip. Mu Axian frowned. A trip? Why did he want to go on a trip? Ban Jianing reached out and hugged Mu Axian. Mu Xiao was in his arms. This scene was very heartwarming. Ban Jianing kissed Mu Axian's face and smiled. When we return to M City, let's hold a romantic wedding and then go on a trip. How about that? Mu Axian smiled sweetly. Her eyes were especially clear. Okay. Half a month later. Although Golden Phoenix's charm wasn't done yet, Mu Axian's scenes were done, so she was done. Ban Jianing also handed over the matters of Xingyu Media to the deputy CEO, Zhang Jun. They set off for M City. When they were still in a city, Ban Jianing had told Song Wuyo and the rest that when they returned to M City, they would hold a wedding. Hence, before they returned, Song Wuyo had already started to prepare for them. The venue for the wedding, the invited guests, Song Wuyo and Huang Ling had all been prepared. On the third day of their return, the wedding was successfully held. The venue was the 5-star Bojun Hotel that Maupassant had invested in. Today, the hotel was only open for the wedding guests. The president's brother-in-law's wedding. The CEO of Xingyu Media, Ban Jianing, was going to marry the once glorious Miss Mu Axian of the Mu family. And a few years ago, Mu Axian was in a relationship with President Qing Jianqin's nephew, Qing Junhua. And the Qing family was the murderer of the Ban family. There was a lot of material. Hence, since morning, there were reporters from radio station waiting at the entrance of the hotel. The entrance of the hotel was decorated very festively. Pink balloons and the setting made the hearts of young girls burst. There was a red carpet at the entrance of the hotel. On both sides of the red carpet, there were wedding photos of Ban Jianing and Mu Axian. The wedding dress, background, and makeup in each photo. But their smiles were bright and happy. Gu Yanhao invited many people to attend the wedding. Ban Jianing wanted to make the wedding grand and spectacular. All the media reporters with good reputations who didn't write nonsense were invited to attend the wedding. The wedding was broadcasted live on all the television stations in K-Nation. At the wedding venue, the grand ceremony began. Mu Axian, who was wearing a wedding dress, was so beautiful that she was breathtaking. Ever since she appeared, a sweet and happy smile had been hanging on her beautiful face. As for the bridegroom, from the moment he appeared, he had been looking at her with a doting and gentle gaze. When the two of them stood in front of the MC and listened to the MC recite the oath, there was no one present who didn't think that they were a match made in heaven. When they were exchanging rings, Ban Jianing looked at Mu Xin with deep affection. In front of everyone, he said, Mu Xin, meeting you is the greatest fortune of my life. I will accompany you and pamper you for the rest of my life. It was a simple confession, but it was deeply rooted in her heart. Mu Axian was moved to tears. She hugged him and kissed him passionately for a very long time. All the cameras kept capturing this touching scene. After the kiss ended, Mu Xin held Ban Jianing's hand and said loudly to him, Jianing, I love you. I love you very much. Don't ask me how much I love you. I really can't say it. I only know that you have become a habit in my life, an indispensable habit. Every night, I can skip eating and sleeping, but I can't stop thinking about you. Chapter 1471. Me too. Ban Jianing held her face again and kissed her passionately. In their eyes, they only had each other. There were no other flaws. All the women who watched the wedding on TV were envious of Muxin. It was really a lovey-dovey wedding. Lin Ruoruo, who was in a city, watched the entire wedding on her phone. After watching the wedding, she realized that she did not understand Ban Jianing at all. If she did, she would know that there was a woman in his heart. That woman was Muxin. Throughout the whole process, Ban Jianing was excited and happy. The smile on his face could not be a lie. He really, really loved Muaxian. Muaxian was already everything in his life. Zhang Jun had already told her that Ban Jianing was going to bring his wife and child around the world. This was equivalent to giving up his position as the CEO of Star Entertainment. Ban Jianing could actually give up such an important company for his wife and child. Lin Ruoruo smiled and said sincerely, "Jianing, I don't ask for anything else. I just want you to be happy. And be healthy for a long time so that you can grow old with Muxin." She never knew that Ban Jianing had undergone a leukemia bone marrow transplant 6 years ago. She only found out about it when Mu Xiao underwent the surgery. This news was very shocking to her. Because of this, she cried the whole night. She went online to search for information about leukemia. There were rumors online that some leukemia patients passed away before the surgery. Some could live for 5 years after the surgery, some could live for 10 years, and some could live for 20 years. There were even examples of people who could live until they were old. She did not ask for anything else now. She only hoped that Ban Jianing could be an example and live until he was old. Lin Ruoruo exited the video and looked at the photos on her phone. The man's handsome face had a sunny smile. This was a photo she took of him when they were abroad. He was smiling sincerely at her. It was very sunny and very handsome. Lin Ruoruo looked at him with tears in her eyes. "I will pray for you every night. I hope that you will have a family full of children and grandchildren." If God stood in front of her and told her to live until she was 80 years old, she would definitely say to God, "Let me live until I'm 50 years old. I want to give the remaining 30 years to the man I love." She really hoped that Ban Jianing could accompany Muaxian until she grew old and watch her children and grandchildren. On the other side, Qing Junhua, who was sitting on the sofa and staring at the television screen, felt as if his heart had been hollowed out. He never knew that Muaxian was going to get married. When he suddenly saw it on TV, he was very surprised. It was as if his heart had been hollowed out. But gradually, when he saw the sweet smile on her face, he breathed a sigh of relief. What she needed now was Ban Jianing, not him. In the past, he didn't know how to cherish her, didn't believe her, and caused her to be hurt. He didn't have the qualifications to accompany her to old age. Only Ban Jianing had the qualifications to accompany her to old age. Although he didn't know that Muaxian was a mother, he knew that he was their son when he saw the little boy in a suit following them elegantly on the screen. It turned out that their son was already so old and still so handsome. Qing Junhua knew that in the future, Muxin's life would be very happy. That was the truth. After marriage, Muxin's life was filled with nothing but happiness. The wedding ended smoothly. Ban Jianing and Muaxian had their wedding room in the hotel. They were resting in the hotel. The wedding room was plastered with celebratory banners and wedding photos. Chapter 1472. Song Wuyo and Gu Yanhao, Maupassant and Huang Ling, Magu and Qing Wanduo were all staying in the hotel tonight. Muxin was no longer willful. She respected her sister-in-law, Qing Wanduo. Magu knew that Muxin had been raising Mu Xiao alone in a city all these years. His heart ached. After scolding her fiercely, he warned Ban Jianing not to let his sister down. They returned to their respective rooms. Ban Jianing and Muxin lay on the bed. Between them lay an adorable Mu Xiao. Originally, they wanted to do something romantic tonight. Unexpectedly, the heavens were not on their side. Muxin's relatives came to visit her. Ban Jianing was very aggrieved. Muxin laughed at him, saying that her relatives came to attend their wedding. On their wedding night, there was no one else but Ban Jianing who slept with his wife and son in his arms. In the next room, Song Wuyo snuggled in Gu Yanhao's arms. There was an uncontrollable smile on her face. Seeing that Jianing and Muxin are finally married, do you feel like you've completed an important task? Gu Yanhao asked. Song Wuyo nodded. Yes. From the moment I came to this world and saw Muxin for the first time, I knew that in this life, she would continue her fate with Jianing. I'll continue my fate with you too. Song Wuyo looked up at Gu Yanhao. Her eyes were shining, beautiful and moving. Ah ho, in this life, I want you to accompany me and pamper me. Gu Yanhao chuckled, lowered his head, and kissed her lips. He used his actions to tell her that in this life, he would accompany her and pamper her. A gentle breeze blew. The sky was dark. The surrounding small mountains were continuous. At the foot of the mountain, there were fields and small hills. Many wild flowers bloomed in the fields and hills. Butterflies danced on the wild flowers. On an abandoned hill, there was a tombstone erected abruptly. It was very conspicuous. As soon as Song Wuyo appeared here, she was attracted by the tombstone. His feet involuntarily walked towards the tombstone. When she stood in front of the tombstone and saw the words engraved on it, she couldn't help but be shocked. Beloved wife Song Wuyo. On the tombstone, there were 5 big words. Although it was engraved, she recognized that it was Dongfang Xian's handwriting. After she was sentenced to death by him, he buried her in their hometown. Song Wuyo looked at the cemetery. The tomb was very unique, and the surroundings were paved with marble. The inside of the tomb was very clean. Outside of the tomb was a sea of flowers. There were many different kinds of flowers in the sea of flowers. Flowers bloomed all year round. Pairs of butterflies danced and played in the sea of flowers. On the altar in front of the tombstone, there were fresh fruits, meat, papyrus. It was as if there were people coming to visit her every day and offering her incense. Song Wuyo stood in front of her grave and looked at the words on the tombstone in shock. Dongfang Xian was so cruel. She fought side by side with him and won back the country. It was fine if the empress was another woman, but why didn't he let her take over the country even after she died? He even sent her bones back to their hometown, but wasn't her entire family killed? Hadn't all of his family members and relatives been executed? Who would clean her grave every day, bring her food every day, and offer her incense every day? Standing in front of her grave and looking at her tombstone, Song Wuyo had mixed feelings. Just as she was about to turn and leave, she saw a tall figure on the path ahead. Seeing this figure, Song Wuyo's back stiffened. Dongfang Xian. Dongfang Xian in plain clothes. Chapter 1473. Why was he in her hometown? Why was he wearing the clothes of a commoner? Why would he appear in front of her grave? Could it be that he was the one who sent all the fresh flowers and papyrus? Had he been sweeping her grave and worshipping her all this while? Song Wuyo looked at the man who was approaching her and realized that he had lost weight and looked haggard. Upon closer inspection, there were still some white hairs at his temples. Even so, he was still so resolute and handsome. As he got closer, it was as though he could not see Song Wuyo at all. He walked past her expressionlessly. Standing in front of the tombstone, his gaze gradually turned sorrowful as he stared at the words on the tombstone. The aura that he exuded was no longer that dignified and aloof emperor aura. Instead, it was that of a lonely man without a wife. Song Wuyo walked closer and looked at him in confusion. Wasn't he the one who wanted to kill her? What happened in the palace after her death for him to become like this? He was no longer wearing the dragon robes or brocade robes. He was wearing plain clothes that were worn by commoners. Dongfang Xian. Song Wuyo called out to him. However, he did not seem to have heard her as he continued to stare at the words on the tombstone. Song Wuyo reached out to touch him. What was going on? Why did she not feel anything when she touched him, as though she was touching air? Song Wuyo was in disbelief as she reached out again, wanting to grab Dongfang Xian's robes. Still, she could not touch him. Song Wuyo's heart sank. Dongfang Xian, what are you doing here? She did not want to touch Dongfang Xian anymore. Instead, she walked in front of him and looked at him in disbelief. She stood in front of him. For a moment, Song Wuyo felt that he was looking at her. Soon, his gaze moved past her and looked at the tombstone behind her. I'm here to visit her. Dongfang Xian spoke softly. Song Wuyo opened her mouth in surprise. He could hear her. Song Wuyo asked subconsciously, why do you want to see her? Didn't you kill her? I killed the woman I loved the most. No, you don't love her. If you love her, why don't you make her your empress? She didn't wait for me, she didn't give me a chance. Song Wuyo was stunned. She wasn't going to wait for him. She didn't give him a chance. What did he mean? If I don't agree to stop the war, I don't know how many years she and I will have to spend on the battlefield. She was injured because of me, and I knew she was tired. She wanted to see peace, but the doctor said that her wound was infected. The military camp was suitable for her, but she refused to leave. She refused to leave me. That night, I had to go to the enemy's camp to negotiate peace. Song Wuyo thought back to that year. She had said that she was seriously injured and had been pronounced dead by the doctor. If she did not return to the capital for treatment, she would lose her life. The medical herbs in the military camp were limited, but she could not rush back to get the medicine and then rush back. The only way was to send her back and save the time needed to make a trip. However, she refused to leave Dongfang Xian. Moreover, the war was urgent at that time. She was seriously injured, which meant that his side could be defeated at any time. If they were defeated, she and Dongfang Xian would lose their lives. At that time, she thought that perhaps it was fate that she and Dongfang Xian would die on the battlefield. They had been fighting on the battlefield for 8 years. It was time for a conclusion. She insisted on not leaving. Regardless of victory or defeat, she wanted to stay by his side. Then, the next day, Dongfang Xian, who had returned, told her that there was no need to fight. They had won and the enemy had been defeated. Then, he took her, who was seriously injured, and rushed back to the capital without stopping. Her injury was treated, and the seriously ill emperor fulfilled his promise. When he returned, he would give up the throne and give it to him. He accepted. He finally realized his wish and became the emperor. He built the old palace into an incomparably prosperous palace. On the day of his ascension, the people of the country celebrated. The brothers who had fought side by side with him cheered happily. However, when he stood at the high city gate and announced the identity of the empress in front of the brothers who had gone through fire and water with him, Song Wuyo was stunned. The brothers who had gone through fire and water with him were also stunned. No one knew the true identity of the empress, so no one knew that the victory was because Dongfang Xian secretly married the princess of the enemy country. The empress seemed to be very close to Dongfang Xian. After becoming the empress, she did not take the initiative to say who she was. She only said that she was the woman that Dongfang Xian loved the most. Song Wuyo was greatly shocked. He had an empress, but she had fallen to the level of an imperial concubine. The palace she lived in was very prosperous. However, on the night of his marriage with the empress, she cried in her own residence for the entire night. On the third day of his marriage, she asked him why she was not the empress. He said that when he became the emperor and built a prosperous palace, he would make her his empress. Why did he not keep his promise to her when he realized his dream? When he gave her the answer, the empress was more suitable to be his empress. She asked, "On the night of your marriage, did you spend the night in her room?" He nodded, indicating that he had slept with the empress. At that time, she almost broke down. She looked at him with tears streaming down her face. "We were childhood sweethearts. I saw you as my life. You also promised to give me the empress position. It's fine if you didn't give it to me, but you didn't even give me your virginity." In the beginning, he treated her very well. He often stayed at her place and doted on her. It seemed that the people of the country knew that the stability of the country was due to Dongfang Xian and Song Wuyo. The entire palace was happy that Dongfang Xian doted on imperial concubine Song. However, later on, his attitude towards her changed. Song Wuyo did not know what she did wrong. Dongfang Xian suddenly gave her the cold shoulder. "I have my reasons for not making her my empress. I thought that she would understand me, but she didn't." She hooked up with Tang Weibo and confessed her feelings to him. Song Wuyo listened quietly. It turned out that Dongfang Xian had always loved her. He made the other party's princess his empress to give them what they wanted. However, he was already preparing to attack the enemy. However, something unpleasant happened in the middle of the journey. He saw Tang Weibo hugging his beloved woman, and it was not the first time. Then, the empress bribed imperial concubine Song's maid. If Tang Weibo came to imperial concubine Song's palace to inform her, she would report to Dongfang Xian. Dongfang Xian knew that Tang Weibo liked Song Wuyo on the battlefield. He did not expect that he would be so bold as to go to Song Wuyo's palace to have a tryst with her behind his back. He misunderstood that Song Wuyo and Tang Weibo had an affair. Song Wuyo was in despair. How could the man she loved do this? When he questioned her, she remained silent. He was defeated, but he did not lose his temper. Then, he heartlessly put her in the cold palace. After that, she did not see Tang Weibo for a long time. One night, Tang Weibo suddenly appeared in the cold palace. He was injured at that time, so she took him in for the night. Chapter 1474. The next day, she made use of trustworthy palace maids and soldiers in the palace to secretly send him out of the palace. However, right after she and Tang Weibo left, Dongfang Xian arrived. He saw the man's belt on the bed and the bloodstains on the bed sheets. When he saw this scene, a ball of anger burned wildly in his chest. In the end, he did not punish her. He left the cold palace without hesitation. After sending Tang Weibo away, Song Wuyo did not know that Dongfang Xian had appeared in her bedroom. When Dongfang Xian reappeared in the cold palace, he and the empress personally came over with white silk. Song Wuyo, who had a confused look on her face, did not even realize what was going on before the eunuch announced her sins. He had already executed her entire clan and was now here to deal with her. One of the crimes was that she had sexual intercourse with a rebel and was pregnant with his child. Song Wuyo was indescribably heartbroken at that time. He had sentenced her to 9 crimes, and executed her entire clan. At that time, Song Wuyo felt that the sky had darkened. She could not see a trace of light. She did not cry or make a fuss. Instead, she looked at Dongfang Xian quietly. "Why? Why are you treating me like this?" Dongfang Xian was expressionless. His eyes were as cold as frost. Haven't the crimes been written clearly? Song Wuyo snorted. He was just sentencing her to death. Why did he have to make a list of her crimes? She was locked up in the cold palace. When did she have sexual intercourse? When did she have secret dealings with the enemy? When did she get pregnant? He just wanted her to die. He could have just stabbed her with a knife. Why did he sentence her to 9 crimes? And even executed her entire clan? Song Wuyo was devastated. Pain and sorrow were written all over her face. However, she did not cry or make a fuss. She calmly took the white silk from the eunuch and hanged herself in front of him. After listening to Dongfang Xian, Song Wuyo understood everything. Everything was the Empress's doing. Moreover, he had seen her with Tang Weibo with his own eyes. He had believed the words of the doctor who had always been by his side. The doctor said that she was expecting. And the maidservants in her palace also said that she had lost her appetite for 3 months. Dongfang Xian couldn't accept the truth because he loved her too much. In fact, he was already secretly plotting to attack an enemy country that was as powerful as his own country. Why couldn't she just bear with it? When he won, he would kill the Empress with his own hands and make her his Empress. While he was busy setting things up, she hooked up with his best friend. He was filled with hatred and anger. Tang Weibo, who was locked up in the prison by him, shouted at him with his last breath, "Dongfang Xian, you don't deserve Wuyo's love. Do you think you've lost?" He had completely lost. That's right, I love Wuyo. I love her very, very much. I did sleep on her bed for 1 night. So what? After hearing this, Dongfang Xian was even more convinced that Song Wuyo had betrayed him. After 3 months, the doctor said that she was expecting. Dongfang Xian loved her so much that he wanted to kill her. He only killed her. He didn't do anything like exterminating her entire family. Her parents treated him like their own son. He couldn't bear to do anything to them. He only said this in front of her to anger her and make her leave with hatred. Song Wuyo shook her head helplessly and looked at Dongfang Xian. I didn't expect you to be so muddle-headed. Dongfang Xian smiled bitterly. I was muddle-headed. After I found out the truth, I killed the Empress. Are you still the Emperor now? Song Wuyo asked. Dongfang Xian shook his head and stared at the words on the tombstone. He looked very sad and sad. Without her, how can I be the Emperor? Then the throne. Song Wuyo was very surprised that he had given up the throne. I gave it to the late Emperor's 4th son. This son was very ambitious and always wanted to be the Emperor. I brought her bones back to our hometown. Here, we have our beautiful childhood and memories. So he was so infatuated. Song Wuyo looked at Dongfang Xian sadly. You were wrong because you wanted to be the Emperor too much. Otherwise, you could have won the war and come back here together. Then, you wouldn't have to be separated by life and death. Oh. At this moment, the originally quiet surroundings were suddenly filled with excited screams. The screams startled the birds and insects in the surroundings. Song Wuyo looked up and her expression changed drastically. Oh no, there was an ambush. There were assassins coming from all directions. They were not assassins. They were wearing military uniforms and holding long swords and bows. Song Wuyo shouted, could it be that the new emperor wants to kill you? Is he worried about you? Dongfang Xian replied with silence. Song Wuyo was very anxious. She hurriedly tried to pull Dongfang Xian. Hurry and leave. However, she could not pull him away. Dongfang Xian did not seem to hear the people coming at them. Seeing that they were about to attack, Song Wuyo was so anxious that tears flowed out of her eyes. She shouted at Dong Fang Xian, you'll die if you don't leave now. Dong Fang Xian suddenly smiled. I saw her waiting for me. That's good too. It's time for me to accompany her. Song Wuyo was so anxious that her heart skipped a beat. What nonsense are you talking about? Among them, the person who rushed up first raised his sword and slashed down at Dong Fang Xian's back. Song Wuyo was shocked. His eyes widened to the size of an egg as he stared at the gleaming blade. She instinctively pounced forward, wanting to use her body to protect him and block those swords for him. However, when she pounced on him, he could not hold her back. She fell to the ground. Just like that, those swords slashed at Dong Fang Xian's back. Instantly, fresh blood sprayed onto Song Wuyo's face. He was the man she loved the most. Was he going to be slashed just like that? Dong Fang Xian. She screamed and her eyes flew open. What she saw was a dazzlingly bright crystal lamp. Then, an extremely handsome and gloomy face slowly approached her. When she saw that face, which was exactly the same as the face in her dream, Song Wuyo was a little confused. Was he Dong Fang Xian or Gu Yanhao? Song Wuyo was at a loss. Did you dream of another man? Gu Yanhao's face was gloomy. Song Wuyo nodded. I dreamed of Dong Fang Xian. I know. You called him. I dreamed that he had his reasons for wanting to kill me. He told me everything. Gu Yanhao's face became gloomier and gloomier. And then? Do you want to go back to him? Song Wuyo blinked. Her eyes shone brightly. Yes, but how? Gu Yanhao gritted his teeth when he heard this. Song Wuyo, you already have me and 2 children. Do you still want to go back? Song Wuyo reached out and hugged his neck. You believe that? Actually, I dreamed that he was slashed to death. His body was covered in blood. The place where he was slashed was the same as the scar on your back. A strange light flashed across Gu Yanhao's eyes. Song Wuyo looked at him with a smile. Ah ho, don't be jealous. You are Dong Fang Xian, and Dong Fang Xian is you. I dreamed of him and missed him, but actually, I missed you. Gu Yanhao said coldly, I am Gu Yanhao. No matter who you are the man I love the most in my life. Yes, I love you very much too. After that, he bent down and kissed her. Chapter 1475. 20 years later, white snowflakes fluttered in the air. It had been snowing for a day and a night. The entire land was covered in white. In the past, no matter how cold it was in K country, there was always frost. In fact, frost was colder than snow. This year, there was pure white snow in K country. Many people who had never seen snow before were very excited. No matter how cold it was, they came out to watch the snow. The wind was cold and whistling. It scraped against the skin like a cold and sharp knife. It was painful as if the skin was cut open. This winter was colder than usual. The trees had already become bald old men. The white snow pressed down on the branches like a heavy burden. The whole back was bent. The snow outside the window fluttered. The room was dead silent. Huang Ling was lying on the sofa as if she had lost her vitality. 20 years had passed. The years that had passed on her face only made her more mature, beautiful, and dignified. Her eyes were quietly looking at the ceiling. Maupassant brought out a bowl of soup from the kitchen. When he saw her like this, his heart ached. Their precious daughter, Mo Qingfeng, had sacrificed herself for the country. She was dead. Their precious daughter grew up and became a special forces soldier. She was a very capable girl. The way she handled things was similar to Maupassant. Every time an important mission was assigned to her, she would complete it well. This time, she had sacrificed herself. Huang Ling could not accept this fact. After the funeral yesterday, she returned home and did not speak. Her precious daughter was capable and beautiful. How could she leave her like this? Maupassant came to her side and hugged her. He comforted her in a low voice, "Huang Ling, take it easy." Huang Ling did not cry. She was like a person without a soul. She was weak. How could she take it easy? She had lost a daughter. When we agreed to let her do this job, we knew that she was dangerous. Maupassant's brows showed a trace of fatigue. He was sadder than Huang Ling, but what could he do? Mo Qingfeng was the one who wanted to be a special forces soldier. They could not object to her insistence. It was said that a daughter was her father's lover in his previous life. Maupassant loved his daughter to death. Now that it was gone, how could he not be sad? But he was a man, and he was also a soldier. He knew that his daughter's sacrifice was honorable. He could not weep. Although he was really sad, I didn't agree, but you did. Huang Ling said sadly. That's the life Qingfeng wants. Huang Ling rolled her eyes and looked at Maupassant. Brother Mo, do you think our daughter is living in another world? Just like Rio and me. Maupassant nodded. There should be. It's just that we don't know. Huang Ling's face was full of sadness. How I wish that a strange girl would suddenly knock on my door and tell me that she's our daughter, and then tell me about her childhood. But she didn't. I've been waiting at home all day, but... Huang Ling, tell Wuyo to go back and tell her family that she's not dead. Can she do it? Huang Ling shook her head. She can't. What if our daughter is like Wuyo and continues to live in a world we're not familiar with? How would she come back to us? Brother Mo. Huang Ling sat up and threw herself into Maupassant's arms. She choked out, I'm so sad. I still can't believe that Qingfeng left me. Maupassant's face was grave. He could not believe it either. It's the truth, their daughter had died honorably in the line of duty. Huang Ling, don't be sad. Qingfeng didn't want us to be like this. Huang Ling shed tears. For our daughter, for you, and for Yuanbo, I'll be fine. Maupassant hugged her tightly. That's bravery. Actually, death isn't scary at all, is it? Like Song Wuyo and you're both people who have personally experienced death. You have to believe that our daughter has gone to live in another world. Death is just a way to send her there. After hearing Maupassant's words, Huang Ling felt better, but she was still sad. Even if her daughter had gone to live in another world, she had left her in the end, Nanba Cemetery. A cold wind blew. A strong aura of grief spread in the air. A man stood upright in front of the beautiful tombstone. The man was wearing a fitting black suit. Snowflakes fell on his body, making his black suit look a little white. The man had a perfect face and a tall and slender figure. His eyes were pitch black, deep, and very beautiful. Because of grief, the muscles on his face were tense, making the lines of his face even more resolute. He was the Mu Shao that everyone was familiar with. When he received the news that Mo Qingfeng had died in the line of duty, he rushed back from abroad as fast as he could. But he still missed the day of her burial. The girl he had always had a crush on was lying coldly inside. Mu Shao was extremely sad. The weather was as sad and painful as his mood. He stood there, staring straight at the smiling girl in the photo. She was so beautiful that it made one's breathing irregular. He had always liked her. He had liked her since he was young. He knew that she was interested in him. It was just that because of work, she wasn't in a relationship for the time being. Next month was her birthday. She called him and said that she wanted to spend her birthday with him alone. He knew that she liked him too. He didn't expect that they wouldn't be able to wait for this day. His voice was extremely pleasant, but it was filled with sorrow and pain. Everyone says that you're brave and that your sacrifice is honorable. Actually, I don't want these at all. If you didn't insist on being a soldier, would we have been able to stay together forever? Now, you're lying there alone. Are you cold? Mo Ching Fong, it's snowing. Are you cold? Rumble, rumble, in a distant world, the Sunluo continent. At this time, thunder, rain, and lightning intersected. Other than the rumbling thunder and the muffled sound of raindrops hitting the ground from time to time, the entire world was silent. In a dark and hidden place in the forest in the backyard of the cold water pavilion in the 8th Lord's mansion, a small handful of scars broke out of the soil like a spring bamboo shoot. First, it was the palm, then the small arm, the shoulder, the upper body. Finally, the whole person climbed out of the soil and stood shivering. It looked very strange in the night full of thunder and lightning. Rumble, with the help of the lightning, one could vaguely see a thin woman covered in mud and with messy hair standing there like a ghost. She narrowed her eyes and looked around in confusion. As if she had thought of something, her eyes suddenly became sharp and murderous. Her deep phoenix eyes burst with a cold light. At this moment, she was like a ghost that crawled out of hell to claim lives. She raised her thin and painful hand and pressed on her chest. Where was this? Why was she here? And why was there a strange memory in her mind? She, Mo Ching Fong, was an elite of the modern special forces. Gu Yanhao and Maupassant worked hard to train her. She was proficient in medicine, poetry, music, calligraphy, and painting. She was shot in the heart during a mission. Mo Ching Fong frowned even more. She was shot in the heart and died, but now her whole body was sore and her limbs were painful as if they were broken. She didn't die. She looked around. Why was she in the bamboo forest? Shouldn't she be lying in the hospital now? What was the strange memory in her mind? Her eyebrows furrowed even tighter. She was clearly shot in the heart and died, but now her whole body was aching, and her limbs were in excruciating pain as if they were broken. Moreover, she died in the laboratory where she was researching Dragon Ball, so why was she in this forest when she woke up? What was the strange memory in her mind? Before she could figure out the memory in her mind, a cold and domineering voice came from behind her. Come back with me. Mo Ching Fong turned around abruptly and saw a man standing a few meters away. The man was dressed in a black robe. The pouring rain didn't wet his clothes, as if there was a huge invisible umbrella over his head. He exuded a gloomy aura. Mo Ching Fong couldn't see his face clearly, but she could feel that he was looking at her like an Azura god of death. Who are you? Mo Ching Fong asked coldly. She couldn't help but be shocked. Why did her voice sound so weak? She looked down at herself. Not to mention her tattered clothes, even her body was much smaller. What was going on? Thinking of this, her head started to hurt. She shook her head lightly and suppressed the memory that emerged. She looked coldly at the man in front of her. Duge Zinin. The man pursed his thin lips and his cold and deep eyes fell on Mo Ching Fong. He was very dissatisfied with her body. It looked too weak. Mo Ching Fong frowned and looked at Duge Zinin unhappily. Who is Duge Zinin? Is he the king of hell? Duge Zinin's eyes darkened. The cold and gloomy aura on his body became more intense. A dark and cold aura condensed in the air. Come back with me. Duge Zinin said coldly again. His tone was still domineering, making her feel that if she didn't go back with him, he wouldn't give up. Mo Qingfeng was the treasure in Maupassant and Huang Ling's hands. Gu Yanhao and Song Wuo also treated her like a treasure. Even Mu Xiao and Gu Yanhao's son treated her like a treasure. In the army, they respected her very much. Now, a man she didn't know was asking her to go back with such a bad attitude. Mo Qingfeng couldn't help but laugh. She didn't want to yield to him at all. She raised her head arrogantly. I don't know who you are, but your attitude makes me very disgusted. I won't go back with you. She didn't know who he was. Mo Qingfeng's words were like a sharp dagger that ruthlessly stabbed into Du Gezinen's heart. His heart ached and he clenched his fists in his sleeves. Today, I must take you back. Whether or not you can take me back depends on your... Before she could say the word ability, Mo Qingfeng was shocked. She stared blankly at the man in front of her. What was going on? Were her eyes playing tricks on her? When she opened her mouth, the man approached her like a whirlwind. Her eyes flashed, and he stood in front of her like a malicious spirit that had just come out of hell. As he approached, the sinister and domineering aura became more obvious, and she also saw his face clearly. Chapter 1476. That cold face seemed to have been carved by a knife. It was perfect and impeccable. That pair of deep, cold eyes and his body exuded an awe-inspiring aura of a king. Mo Qingfeng couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Du Gezinen thought she was going to escape, so he reached out to grab her thin shoulders. The sensitive Mo Qingfeng's eyes turned cold. She moved away and fought back. She knew martial arts. Song Wuo taught her. But why was she panting and exhausted after a few moves? You don't have the dragon-taming spiritual pearl. You're no match for me. Just obediently come back with me. Du Gezinen didn't even need to make a move. He easily pulled her into his arms and wrapped his thick arms tightly around her like a pair of pliers. Mo Qingfeng struggled in his arms but to no avail. Damn it, was she going to lose just like that? What was wrong with this body? Not to mention becoming petite, she couldn't even use her martial arts. If she couldn't use her martial arts, how could she deal with him? The dragon-taming spiritual pearl. What the hell was the dragon-taming spiritual pearl? Mo Qingfeng struggled in the man's arms but to no avail. Mo Qingfeng was too arrogant to go back with him. She suddenly turned her face and smiled at the man. I'll go back with you. Why do you have to be so rough? You don't know how to treat a woman well. Seeing her enchanting eyes, Du Gezinen was dazed. Damn it, how could she become so charming? While he was distracted, Mo Qingfeng, with a smile on her face and eyes full of love, suddenly reached out and attacked his neck with her muddy fingernails like sharp claws. Du Gezinen's eyes turned cold. He quickly let go of her and dodged quickly. But he was still slightly injured. There was a scratch mark on his neck from her fingernails and a trace of blood flowed out. Du Gezinen's cold face twitched. He touched the scratch and looked at Mo Qingfeng gloomily. His eyes were filled with anger and complexity. She attacked him. Don't underestimate anyone who looks weaker than you. They can fight back at any time, Mo Qingfeng said lightly. Du Gezinen's eyes darkened. He waved his hand, wanting to grab her back. At this time, there was a whoosh in the air. He quickly retracted his hand and saw a huge black monster flying above him. Mo Qingfeng looked up and was shocked. What a big bat. Du Gezinen looked at her deeply. Suddenly, a devilish smile appeared on his cold face. There will be a day when you will obediently come back with me. Then, he lightly pushed off the ground and flew onto the bat's back like a swallow. He stood upright. Mo Qingfeng looked up and saw the huge bat flapping its wings. It and Du Gazinen's figures quickly disappeared into the night. Mo Qingfeng looked in that direction and smiled coldly. Would she obediently go back with him one day? Let's wait for that day to come. Boom! Another clap of thunder rang out, causing Mo Qingfeng's head to hurt again. Walking in the dark night, she was like a female ghost who had died unjustly. The murderous intent and coldness emitted from her body made the silent night even more depressing. The next day, the sun was shining brightly. Lying on the cold hard wooden bed, Mo Qingfeng slowly woke up. After a night's rest, her body recovered quickly. She didn't feel as painful as last night. She sat up and used her strength. Her meridians were much smoother, unlike last night when she was panting after fighting with that damn man. She didn't look at this room carefully last night. Now that she looked at it, the room was simple and shabby. Except for a wooden bed that creaked when she turned over and a table and chair that was about to fall down, there was nothing else. She found a clean and old plain robe at the head of the bed and put it on. She reached out and combed her messy hair. She wanted to see how scary this yin-yang face was. Unfortunately, she couldn't even find a broken bronze mirror. No matter what, from now on, she was Mo Qingfeng. She was the ugly Mo Qingfeng who could only be bullied. She was about to open the door and go out when she suddenly heard footsteps and the voices of two women outside. I don't know if that bitch left anything valuable. Anyway, she's dead. She can't take it away. Leaving it here will just take up dust. Do you think His Highness will blame second madam and third madam when he comes back and knows that bitch is dead? Aren't you talking nonsense? That ugly woman has been married to the Wang mansion for more than half a year, but His Highness hasn't stepped into the Coldwater Pavilion. Why would His Highness care about her life or death? Besides, second madam and third madam are so favored. How could His Highness bear to blame them? You're right. When the Empress Dowager was alive, His Highness didn't put that ugly woman in his eyes. After the Empress Dowager died, His Highness didn't put her in his eyes even more. Who would care about her life or death? If it wasn't for the Empress Dowager's decree, His Highness wouldn't have married that dead ugly woman and let her sit in the position of Wang Fei. Thinking about how His Highness has to face that ugly face every day, my heart hurts. What's your heartache about? Even the wedding ceremony was done by a rooster. His Highness has never come to the Coldwater Pavilion, how could he face her every day? Now it's good. That bitch is dead and the Wang mansion is finally clean. Don't say so much. Let's go in and see if there's any valuable jewelry. If the maids from the other rooms come, they'll steal it from us. Mo Qingfeng sat down at the table and listened to their conversation. Her lips curled up slightly, revealing a faint sneer. Creak, when the door was pushed open, the maidservant walking in front saw a woman with long hair sitting at the table. She was stunned at first, but when she took a closer look, she saw the ugly yin-yang face clearly. She was so scared that she retreated, her face full of fear, and her whole body trembled. Ghost! Ghost! The maid following behind also saw the terrifying yin-yang face. She screamed in fright and ran away, shouting as she ran, "Ghost! There's a ghost!" Mo Qingfeng was indifferent to their terrified screams. He sat there quietly with a trace of eerie mockery on the corner of his mouth, and a cold light burst forth from his eyes. Was she a ghost? Did she look like a ghost? Yi Qingyun was in a very good mood today. She took the maids for a walk in the garden. Thinking about how that ugly woman was dead and that His Highness would definitely help her sit up when he returned to the palace and she would be the Wang Fei of the palace, her mood was filled with joy. Today, she specially dressed up. Her clothes were gorgeous, and she wore heavy makeup. She wore all the gold and silver jewelry she could wear. Her whole body was shining with golden light. She was already beautiful with delicate facial features and an exquisite figure. She was known as one of the top 10 beauties of Chu Qiangua. After dressing up carefully, she was as beautiful as a fairy. Ghost. The ugly woman has become a ghost. 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 The beautiful moment was broken by two voices. Yi Qingyun looked towards the corridor and saw third Madame Zhao Minjing's two maids stumbling over. They grabbed the people they saw and said that they saw a ghost. Their expressions were panicked and their eyes were filled with fear, as if they had really seen a ghost. Second Madam. Ghost. Ghost. They ran to Yi Qingyun with difficulty and knelt down with a plop. Their faces were green as they trembled and pointed in the direction of Cold Water Pavilion. They were so scared that they couldn't say a word for a long time. How dare you frighten the second madam? Are you tired of living? Yi Qingyun's maid was usually very arrogant because of her master's favor. She took 2 steps forward and stood in front of them, glaring at them condescendingly. No. There's really a ghost. Xiao Feng's eyes were filled with fear as she stammered. Yi Qingyun frowned slightly and looked at them unhappily. What happened? We just went to Cold Water Pavilion. She was sitting in the room. So scary. What an ugly face. She even smiled at us. Chapter 1477. Yi Qingyun's expression changed slightly. Wasn't that bitch dead? Why was she still sitting in the room? Did you really see it clearly? Was it really that bitch? They nodded rapidly, their eyes full of fear. They didn't look like they were joking. Yi Qingyun's expression changed slightly. That bitch really became a ghost. Humph. She snorted indifferently, her gaze turning vicious. Even if she turned into a malicious ghost, I have a way to make her die again. She didn't believe that the ugly bitch would really become a malicious ghost. Even if she did, she would make her die again. Her uncle specialized in catching ghosts. In this world, there was no ghost that her uncle couldn't catch. She turned her head and said coldly to her maid, Qingqing, go and find my uncle. Yes. Qingqing immediately turned around and left. Yi Qingyun coldly glanced at the maids on the ground. Why are you still kneeling here? Go back and tell your master to bring more people to the Cold Water Pavilion. I don't believe that a ghost can fight against so many people. An hour later, a group of people rushed to the Cold Water Pavilion fiercely. Bang! The door was kicked open and the group rushed in. The small room was instantly filled with people. They all looked at Mo Qingfeng with disgust and disdain. Mo Qingfeng sat leisurely at the table. Her expression was calm and at ease. Her slightly raised lips had a trace of a cold smile as she looked coldly at the murderous crowd. Seeing Mo Qingfeng, Zhao Minjing's expression changed slightly. She thought to herself, this bitch is clearly dead and buried in the earth. Now that she's sitting here, she really became a female ghost. Did she come back to take her life? She secretly glanced at the sunlight coming in through the door. It was a sunny day today. Was a ghost that came out in broad daylight a malicious ghost? Uncle, quickly take this female ghost away. Don't let her harm the world. Yi Qingyun had learned some exorcism skills from Yi Zhong when she was young. When she saw Mo Qingfeng, she wasn't afraid. Instead, she felt a kind of hatred and couldn't wait to take her away. She came out, pointed at Mo Qingfeng, and said to Yi Zhong with a fierce gaze. Yi Zhong, who was wearing strange clothes, stared sharply at Mo Qingfeng. He had some exorcism skills and was quite famous in Chu Qiangua. No matter if it was a good or evil ghost, they couldn't escape from his talisman. He had no children and treated Yi Qingyun as his own daughter. Although the woman in front of him was ugly, she was not a ghost. The Coldwater Pavilion was cold and cheerless, and there was no Yin Qi. Clearly, this woman was not haunted by a ghost. However, out of his love for his niece, even if this ugly woman was not a ghost, he did not say it out loud. Mo Qingfeng calmly glanced at Yi Qingyun, then coldly scanned the crowd. Finally, his gaze landed on Yi Zhong. He laughed mockingly and said, "Can't you tell if I'm a human or a ghost?" She would not let any of them off. Her competitive heart and her character did not allow her to be a coward. Moreover, she was now in possession of Mo Qingfeng's body. She wanted to use Mo Qingfeng's identity to teach those who bullied her a lesson. If she was a coward here, Uncle Gu would definitely laugh at her when he found out. Silly girl, so useless. If Daddy knew, he would shake his head in disappointment. Qingfeng, you're really useless. Mommy and brother would definitely be worried. Was it very painful when you were beaten? Mu Xiao, who had always liked her secretly, would definitely have a vicious tongue. You're a special forces soldier who has killed bad people. How can you be a coward in ancient times? She would never let them bully her. She had Mo Qingfeng's soul. Hearing Mo Qingfeng's words, Yi Zhong's face darkened. He looked at her sharply. He was a famous exorcist. How could he not tell if she was a human or a ghost? He felt that Mo Qingfeng was mocking him and looking down on him. Celestial Master Yi, take her away. Make sure she can never be reincarnated. Zhao Minjing shouted. Her beautiful eyes flashed with a hint of viciousness and panic. Mo Qingfeng chuckled and looked at Yi Zhong. That's right. Hurry up and take me away. Make sure I can't be reincarnated. She wanted to see how he would take her away. Yi Zhong pursed his lips. If she was a ghost, he would definitely take her away without hesitation. But she was not a ghost. He had to think of a better way to take her. Uncle, why are you still hesitating? She's a female ghost now. Hurry up and take her away. Otherwise, she'll bring disaster to the world. Yi Qingyun tugged at Yi Zhong's sleeve. The viciousness in her eyes intensified. Everyone, take 2 steps back. I want to take this female ghost. But this female ghost has a lot of grievances. I might not be able to take care of her. If I can't, you can surround her and beat her to death. I'll use a talisman to devour her. Yi Zhong said loudly. In order for his niece to successfully become a princess, he wanted to use the way of killing ghosts to beat this ugly woman to death. She was the laughingstock of Chu Qiangua. She was the disgrace of the Mo Manor and the 8th Lord's Manor. Even if she was beaten to death, no one would sympathize with her. No one would hold him responsible. When everyone heard this, they all took a few steps back and waited for Yi Zhong to put away the female ghost. Meanwhile, Mo Qingfeng sat there leisurely and looked at Yi Zhong with a smile that wasn't a smile. It was as if he was waiting to see a good show. Yi Zhong took out a few talismans and waved them in front of everyone. He kept chanting incantations that no one could understand. Then he shouted and threw the talismans at Mo Qingfeng. When the talismans landed on Mo Qingfeng's body, everyone thought she would struggle, scream in pain, and then turn into ashes. Unexpectedly, the scene in front of them stunned them. Mo Qingfeng only tilted her head slightly. The corners of her lips curled up, revealing a hint of mockery. She looked at the yellow talisman on her shoulder. She blew lightly, and the talisman floated off her body and gently landed on the ground. Then, she stretched out her bony fingers and picked up the talisman that had fallen on the table. She looked at Yi Zhong with contempt and said with a smile that was not a smile, "You use this kind of broken thing to catch ghosts. This is just ordinary paper. Would a ghost be so timid as to be afraid of a piece of paper? It seems that you are just a ghost-catching master who doesn't live up to your reputation. The world is so stupid to believe that you are a ghost-catching master. You." Yi Zhong's face suddenly changed. He shouted at everyone, "This ghost has a strong resistance. Surround her and beat her to death. Then I will take her in." Ghosts have a resistance? Mo Qingfeng wanted to laugh. She wanted to laugh wildly. She had lived 2 lives, but this was the first time she heard such funny words. Everyone hesitated. The female ghost had a strong resistance. Even Heavenly Master Yi couldn't take her in. Could they beat her to death? What are you doing here? Hurry up. Beat her to death. Whoever kills her first will be rewarded with 500 taels of silver. Seeing that they didn't move, Yi Qingyun shouted again. With such a great reward, there would definitely be brave men. Those who didn't dare to go forward swarmed forward when they heard her. They held knives, swords, and daggers. In an instant, the room was filled with the light of knives and swords. None of the men who swarmed forward could get close to Mo Qingfeng. They were either kicked out or had their necks broken. As a top special forces soldier, unless she didn't make a move, every move she made would take someone's life. Before they could see how Mo Qingfeng attacked, the people who rushed forward were bounced back and fell to the ground. They didn't even have the chance to groan before they died. Yi Qingyun, the group of concubines, and Yi Zhong were all stunned. They looked at Mo Qingfeng in shock. When did the good-for-nothing become so powerful? Yi Zhong's expression was especially ugly. He knew that she wasn't a female ghost. He never dreamed that this infamous disgrace would be so powerful. Mo Qingfeng's attack was like a gust of wind. After a while, there were less than 10 people left. The small cold water pavilion was filled with corpses. The air was filled with the thick smell of blood. From the beginning to the end, Mo Qingfeng didn't leave her chair. The few remaining men didn't dare to go forward. They looked at her in horror. She was a female ghost. A very powerful female ghost. Otherwise, how could a cowardly and incompetent good-for-nothing who would be afraid of even a dog's bark have such good skills now? Only when she became a malicious ghost would she be so cruel. Mo Qingfeng's expression was calm. She casually tidied her clothes, thinking that her body was too weak. Her strength was still lacking. It seemed that she had to train harder in the future. However, it was quite exciting. She could kill people openly without going to jail. This world was quite interesting. If Mu Xiao, that gentle young master, knew that she came here to play such an exciting game, would he be envious of her? Mo Qingfeng smiled as she thought about things. Her indifferent gaze swept across them coldly. Seeing that they were silent and terrified, she smiled lightly. Why aren't you fighting? Aren't you very good at fighting? Then, her gaze landed on Yi Zhong. Her tone was neither fast nor slow with a hint of mockery. Your ability is only a so-so. Want to kill her? You overestimate yourself. Yi Zhong didn't have the guts to talk back. In just a few seconds, this ugly monster in front of him killed more than 30 strong men. No matter how capable he was, he couldn't beat her. He stood there in a daze, looking at the corpses on the ground. Beads of sweat fell from his forehead. His face was pale, and his bloodshot eyes were filled with terror. Are you a human or a ghost? Yi Qingyun pointed at Mo Qingfeng and trembled as she asked. She couldn't help but hide behind Yi Zhong. Whether I'm a human or a ghost, why don't you ask your uncle? Isn't he a master ghost hunter? As a heavenly master can't he tell the difference between a human and a ghost? Mo Qingfeng looked at Yi Zhong playfully. Tell your niece whether I'm a human or a ghost. Tell the truth, or you'll end up like them. With that, she pointed at the ground. That action and that appearance were a bit enchanting. If it wasn't for that scary yin-yang face, she would definitely be a peerless beauty. Chapter 1478. She didn't die at all. Yi Zhong glared at Yi Qingyun, who was hiding behind him, and roared angrily. He wanted to use the ghost-catching incident to beat this bitch to death, but he didn't expect her to be so vicious, taking her life with one move. Yi Zhong felt that he had lost all face and blamed all of this on Yi Qingyun. I'm not an ordinary person. Don't bother me with this kind of thing in the future. I'm a ghost-catching master, not a heartless killer. And I won't kill innocent people. After roaring, he turned and left angrily. If he didn't leave, would he stay here and be killed by this woman? It was fine if he lost all face, but was he going to lose his life too? He had already left, and the men who had come with him had also fled. In the narrow room, the air suddenly circulated a lot more, but the thick smell of blood was not very pleasant to smell. How could this be? Yi Qingyun's expression changed drastically. Her body trembled as she stammered, impossible, she was clearly dead back then, how could she not be dead? The concubines and maidservants who came with them were so frightened that they couldn't even stand up. They fell to the ground and trembled. They couldn't believe that the cowardly and incompetent Imo Zixiao had become so powerful. What they couldn't accept was that Imo Zixiao, who was clearly buried in the ground, wasn't dead. How do you feel? Mo Qingfeng smiled at the trembling Yi Qingyun. Her face was frighteningly pale as she looked at the door in fear. At this moment, she only wanted to escape, but her legs were weak and she couldn't escape at all. You're a demon. You're not Mo Qingfeng. Hearing Mo Qingfeng's question, Qingyun suddenly turned her head and shouted at Mo Qingfeng. Just as she finished shouting, her eyes flashed and her neck suddenly tightened. Mo Qingfeng came to her like a gust of wind and squatted down. She stretched out her bony fingers and tightly squeezed her throat. The instant pain made Yi Qingyun tremble like a fallen leaf in the autumn wind. What are you doing? Mo Qingfeng sneered. She was indeed not Mo Qingfeng, not the cowardly and incompetent Mo Qingfeng of the past. Now, she was the Mo Qingfeng who could bully others and not be bullied by others. She chuckled as a cold glint flashed across her eyes. Do what a demon should do. After saying that, he exerted force with his 5 fingers. With a casual fling, Yi Qingyun was flung out. She grabbed her neck with both hands and rolled on the ground. Her hideous face looked like she was in extreme pain. She let out groans of pain. Mo Qingfeng got up and clapped her hands. She turned around and looked at Zhao Minjing, who was sitting on the ground and trembling. When Zhao Minjing met her cold gaze, her body trembled even more. She kept kowtowing to Mo Qingfeng and begged for mercy. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Princess, please forgive me. Isn't it a little too late to remember that I'm the princess consort? Mo Qingfeng sneered. Didn't he call her a slut or an ugly freak before? Your Highness, spare my life. Your Highness, spare my life. Mo Qingfeng walked towards Zhao Minjing step by step. Her eyes were cold, and there was a deadly smile on her lips. With every step she took, Zhao Minjing felt that she was one step closer to death. Spare your life. Why didn't you spare my life when you bullied me? Mo Qingfeng grabbed Zhao Minjing's collar and lifted her up. Mo Qingfeng was just hungry. They were ruthless enough to beat her to death when she went to the kitchen to get food. Now that she had brought her body back, how could she let them have a good time? Since they didn't let her eat, then she wouldn't let them eat either. She wouldn't take their lives in one move. She wanted them to live a life worse than death. She wanted them to have a taste of starvation. Her 5 fingers reached for Zhao Minjing's throat. Zhao Minjing looked at her in horror and kept shaking her head. That pitiful look was begging her for mercy. She didn't want to have her neck broken like Yi Qingyun. She didn't want to die. She was afraid of death. But no matter how afraid she was of death, she could still smell the scent of death. Those 5 fingers were like a devil's claw. In the end, they still grabbed her throat. What are you doing? Suddenly, a pleasant and cold voice came from behind her. Mo Qingfeng frowned. Her 5 fingers on Zhao Minjing's throat tightened. Hearing his voice, Zhao Minjing's eyes lit up. She looked past Mo Qingfeng to the man standing behind Mo Qingfeng. She used all her strength to shout, "Your Highness, save me. This devil, ah!" Bang! Before she could finish, Mo Qingfeng swung her hand and threw Zhao Minjing out. Zhao Minjing fell to the ground and screamed before fainting. Mo Qingfeng frowned unhappily. She hated it when women shouted in her ear. It hurt her eardrums. "What on earth are you doing?" That pleasant voice sounded again. Mo Qingfeng turned around and saw a man in brocade clothes standing with his hands behind his back. His eyes were cold as he looked at her. Seeing him, Mo Qingfeng's eyes flashed. What a devastatingly beautiful man. Soon, her eyes turned cold again. The memory in her mind told her that the man in front of her was Chu Mukin from the 8th Marquis residence. Her so-called husband, the one who even used a rooster as a substitute for the wedding ceremony. This made her the biggest joke of Chu Qianhua. Chu Mukin's cold eyes swept across the corpses on the ground. His unfathomable eyes flashed with surprise. He looked at Mo Qingfeng and said lightly, "Did you kill them all?" The sun shone on his body, as if there was a layer of faint golden light covering him. It made him look even more magnificent. The cold and noble aura he emitted made people feel that he was unattainable. "What do you think?" Mo Qingfeng glanced at him coldly. Surprised, right? They were surprised that she, who was always bullied, suddenly fought back, right? Chu Mukin glanced at Yi Qingyun, who was lying unconscious on the ground. His eyes darkened. He asked coldly, "You even killed her? She's dead. Does your heart hurt?" Mo Qingfeng walked to Chu Mukin with light steps. She sneered contemptuously, making her yin-yang face even uglier. From the beginning to the end, Chu Mukin only glanced at her coldly. His eyes never stopped on her. Such an ugly woman made his eyes hurt. "What did you do to her?" Chu Mukin asked coldly. "I just broke her esophagus so that she can't eat or drink in the future." Chu Mukin looked at Yi Qingyun. His expression was cold, but his heart was shocked. How could a weak woman kill these people? He even broke someone's esophagus. What a cruel method. Mo Qingfeng, how can you be so cruel? Chu Mukin's cold gaze slowly shifted to Mo Qingfeng's body. That gaze of disgust made Mo Qingfeng feel very uncomfortable. Mo Qingfeng frowned. She looked at Chu Mukin contemptuously and sneered, "You only know now that I'm cruel. Isn't it too late? I just killed a few people who deserve to die, and you say I'm cruel. You've killed as many people as I have in your life, right? Aren't you crueler than me? You're already so cruel. What right do you have to say I'm cruel?" She took a step closer to him and said coldly, "Chu Mukin, I'll become crueler and colder in the future." She would slowly seek justice for those who bullied her. Chu Mukin's handsome face was gloomy. You dare to call this king by his full name? Didn't you call me by my full name just now? Names are meant to be called by others. Will calling you by your name commit the crime of being beheaded? Mo Qingfeng smiled lightly. She flicked her sleeves elegantly and lifted her skirt. She smiled sweetly and said, please clean up the corpses of the cold water pavilion. I don't want to see them before noon. Also, please prepare a sumptuous meal and a bucket of warm water for me. Although she was a soldier, she was loved by everyone. Maupassant and Gu Yanhao both regarded her as a treasure. There was also Mu Axian. Mu Axian knew that Mu Xiao liked her. Even in her dreams, Mu Axian wanted her to be her daughter-in-law. She treated her very well. She was doted on and waited upon by others. Now that she was here, she was going to enjoy the same treatment. After speaking, she twisted her slender waist and stepped over the corpses. She walked leisurely like she was taking a stroll in a garden. Chu Mukin coldly swept his gaze over the corpses on the ground and then looked at Mo Qingfeng's swaying waist. His deep eyes flashed with a touch of annoyance. When did she become so bold? Wasn't she an idiot in the past? Wasn't she a trash who didn't fight back when scolded? Why was the current her completely different from the previous her? No matter how much Chu Mukin hated Mo Qingfeng, he still had the maids bring a sumptuous meal and hot water to the cold water pavilion. Mo Qingfeng's entire body was soaked in the bathtub. She raised her head slightly and closed her eyes. Her soft black hair floated on the water like a piece of fine silk floating on the water's surface. Her skin was whiter than snow. Under the hot water, her snow-white skin was pink. The water covered her perfect and delicate collarbone. Below the collarbone was jade skin. Above the collarbone, that yin and yang face looked particularly ugly in the steam. After an unknown amount of time, Mo Qingfeng didn't open her eyes until the water cooled down. She stood up from the bathtub and swept the towel hanging on the screen to dry the water droplets on her body. When she saw the golden mark on her left arm, she couldn't help but be shocked. There was a round birthmark on her arm. It was dark purple. How did it become light purple beads? Mo Qingfeng counted. There were a total of 9 beads. 8 of them surrounded one, like the 8 trigrams. Mo Qingfeng thought, could this be the dragon-taming spiritual bead that strange man mentioned? What the hell is this dragon-taming spiritual bead? The memory of the original owner told her that there had always been a birthmark on her arm. How did it become like this after a bath? That you're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.